All right. For the ministerial conversation, and we are still waiting for a few of the honorable ministers to join the panel at the top. And of course, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. So let me crave your indulgence to remind all of us of a bit of what we learned in the morning, or a bit of what we all consumed in the morning at the opening ceremony, while we wait for the honorable ministers and of course His Excellency the Secretary General. So we were again reminded that although the continent is ready and moving towards the digitization drive, we definitely have challenges. Already through digital platforms, Africans are showcasing a lot of potentials on the continent. And we have seen quite a number of those smart stars that were introduced here earlier on, innovating across the continent of Africa and ensuring that we get to where we all seek to be, the goal of the continent by 2063, integrating the entire continent, integrating our trade, integrating our services, our movements, and of course, trading among ourselves. But unfortunately, revenue from such ventures, that is digital trading among ourselves, is not up to what we're all looking for. And that is why the AfCFTA-led protocol on digital trade is seeking to address this bottleneck, ensuring that we are able to generate and, of course, benefit from the revenues that are accruing from the digital trade that we are all driving at the moment. Now, boosting digital trade is a necessity. We're reminded, no longer a luxury. We need to build a digital single African market. Again, we're reminded of that. And that mobile money alone has surpassed $400 billion US. That was also a big revelation that we learned earlier in the day. Digital trade is so far $180 billion. That's just about 5.2% of Africa's GDP. And again, the reminder came from His Excellency, the Secretary General, the dynamic man again leading the Secretariat, that 40% of our continent's population have no access to internet. So as we seek to drive this particular course, we find a way of bridging this gap. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I got a hint while we were on break that there's something that a lot of us are grappling with. I have been reminded to take a short time to give all of us an exercise whilst we wait for the rest of our honorable ministers to join us. And that's going to be a short exercise after lunch because, and probably our punishment for coming back from lunch quite late. But this is an interesting one. You would love it if you are one of those who is struggling to have answers to what I'm coming to take us through now. The name African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the acronym is giving a lot of people problems. Whether we say AfTA, AfCFTA, CFTA, AfCFTA, some have decided to just shorten it Africa and just say CFTA after that. We're going to give ourselves a short assignment. In just 1 minute, I am going to say it, and I would expect Your Excellencies, honorable members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, tag along and pronounce it after me. Just in 1 minute. Then Ms. Nshuti can come over. It is AfCFTA. AfCFTA, Digital Trade Forum Program. We expect that by the time we are done with this entire forum, nobody will get this wrong. Shall we all say AfCFTA? AfCFTA. Thank you very much. Let's welcome Ms. Nshuti with a big round of applause. Thank you.
Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Mr. Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the AfCFTA, I really want to start off this session with, or this setting the scene, with just giving the Secretary General his flowers for getting us here today. In 2021, at the Secretariat, I met His Excellency and told him that the continent was in urgent need of a digital and financial inclusion champion. And without hesitation, said yes. And since then, worked very quickly to get us going on the protocol on digital trade, and not just going, but delivering it in 18 months. And now we are here at the Digital Trade Forum, starting to talk about implementation. Your Excellency, thank you. Thank you for taking the baton of our Pan-African fathers that they started this mission to build a One Africa market in 1963, agreed in Abuja to get it done, and here you are, turning that commitment into deed. Congratulations. Please, let's clap for him and thank him for this moment. I'm happy to be here. Better Than Cash Alliance has been walking this journey with the Secretary General and the Secretariat, and really honored to have this opportunity. We are hosted by the UNDP and an alliance of 80 members that include governments, international organizations, global companies, etc. But I really stand here carrying a megaphone for the hundreds of millions of young entrepreneurs, women, men that are trading across our borders today, that are not counted in that 16% that is talked about. For hundreds of years, border communities, in fact, trade with each other. But because of how they trade, informally, as they call it, although I like to call it popular, they are then not counted in the work that we do with each other already. And at those borders, it's mainly foodstuffs that are being traded. So standing here with the millions that are doing trade every day, that are doing the best that they can with what they have, and now in this protocol, the Secretary General, our heads of state are asking us to support them. And we can only do that with ministers like yourselves. And as President Hichilema said today, that we need to come together as one. Yesterday we had a masterclass and we met Mandy, a young mother of a 1-year-old child who had come from Livingston to buy goods to take back to her shop. She also has goods that come from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Botswana, from Uganda, but the pain of getting them to Livingston can be solved digitally. To make the payments, she has to go through hoops and hassles to get that payment done, and mainly it is cash here and someone giving cash to somebody because banking is very expensive. Fida, who is a cattle trader, also blessed us with her thoughts and experience. She is part of a cattle trading community in Benin, and in any given week, 4 days a week, cattle traders come together in a market, sell about 5,000 heads of cattle. One costs $600, and every single purchase is done in cash. 4 days a week, That's, what, 16 times a month? Millions of dollars. I think she said $350 million. That is all transacted in cash. So digital and financial inclusion, which are proven solutions, are really the solution, and we have agreed to do that in the protocol on digital trade, specifically in the annex of digital payments. There's a brother here in Zambia, who talked about how he just set up a business to sell copper, buying it from the region, but he is required to open an account in Dubai to be able to start trading African copper by an African business, but he will only be trusted when he does those transactions from an account in UAE. So we have work to do. Africa is already the pioneer of digital financial services, particularly on mobile. We have M-Pesa, we have Nigeria's BVN, the first digital ID that allowed Nigerians to have an ID to get an account. Ghana was the first one to do a QR code with both mobile money and bank payments, merchant payments, not P2P remittances that make it very difficult. Smart Zambia is well on its way with digital ID, among others. Rwanda, Irembo is serving government and soon will be serving entrepreneurs. So we have the solutions. We have the protocol. And the protocol was designed with that trader at the border in mind because the SG ensured so. So we need central banks to allow interoperable payments quickly. We need telco regulators to allow interoperable networks so we don't have to get a SIM card when we travel across this continent to do business. We need ID authorities to put IDs into people's hands and therefore be ready for the AfCFTA digital ID to allow those authentically African goods to travel this continent as quickly as possible. We need customs and revenue authorities to interoperate to simplify life for Mandy in Livingston and others like her. A son of the soil and great philosopher Bob Marley sang 47 years ago, the year I was born. And he called for Africa to unite. If I may quote him, how good, I won't sing because those skills are not yet in my blood, but he said, how good and how pleasant it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Africans. As it has been said already, let it be done. So, Africa unites. And he said, unite for the benefit of your people. Unite for it's later than you think. Unite for the benefit of my children, and unite for the Africans abroad. So, honorable ministers, as you reflect on this conversation, how quickly, as champions, will you unite for us to move as one, to unite Africans as you have promised in the protocol on digital trade, and start the revolution that the president of Botswana talked about today? We as Better Than Cash Alliance have stood with the AfCFTA from the start, from ideation to adoption, and now we stand ready with those that are willing, as the SG said, to not just talk, but to get started in delivering solutions so that we can progress together for the benefit of our people in Africa and abroad. I thank you, and I look forward to working with each one of you to get it done. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together once again for Ms. Nshuti. This plenary is a ministerial segment, is on activating digital inclusion for the success of MSMEs in the AfCFTA. Moderator is Ms. Cynthia Nyasingbe Esonam, Senior Advisor to the Secretary General on Private Sector Engagement, AfCFTA Secretariat. Let's put our hands together for her, please.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, and Nshuti, thank you very much for this insightful and compelling keynote. I think you have given case studies that demonstrate that there is still a lot to be done for us to truly unlock the opportunity of the African digital economy. And you reminded us that when digital tools, when they are accessible and affordable and inclusive, we can unlock the full potential of MSMEs, which are, of course, the lifeblood of our economies. So this really sets the perfect stage for our upcoming high-level panel discussion, which brings together distinguished leaders from government. You've met them in the morning. And please give them a round of applause because it's been a long day, but they are still here with us. That demonstrates the commitment, the willingness to really move this agenda forward. So, Your Excellencies, thank you so much. You know them, but I will quickly introduce them because they are my panelists. So I am joined in this conversation with Honorable Minister Jumeke Oduole, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and also AfCFTA co-champion of digital trade. We have Honorable Prudence Sebahizi, Minister of Trade and Industry of the Republic of Rwanda. We've got Honorable Park Stau, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition of the Republic of South Africa and AfCFTA co-champion of digital trade. We have Honorable Felix Mutati, Minister of Technology and Science of the Republic of Zambia. We've got also Mr. Lanre Olajimeji, General Manager, Heads Retail and Digital Banking, Zenith Bank. I believe he's supposed to join us online. So colleagues, please let me know if he is online. And then, of course, last but not least, an entrepreneur, Mr. Miyoba Amuhuma, CEO, Enlight Abilities, and advocate for differently abled entrepreneurs. Please, a round of applause for the panelists. So the discussion really aims to identify actionable steps because since the morning we have listened to our leaders. They've given us marching orders. The sense of urgency has been reiterated. And throughout the conversations, throughout the interactions, what has come through is how do we ensure that we implement the AfCFTA with everybody in the bandwagon, in the train. So this, I would say, session is really to look at digital trade and financial inclusion. How do we ensure that it is inclusive, that our SMEs, our young and women entrepreneurs, are part of the journey, and that the digital infrastructure is adequate for them. So we have had a long conversation in the morning, and I know that we don't have a lot of time, so I've been told that we will just have one round of questions for the honorable panelists. And here, ministers, honorable ministers, we know about the challenges or the barriers that our SMMEs face when they want to trade digitally. We've heard about infrastructure gaps. We've heard about the issues with policies, harmonization of regulatory frameworks. We've also heard about the necessity to skill up our SMMEs. And so here I really want to, coming from after having heard what our leaders have said this morning, which is basically what do we do to unlock the opportunity of, unlock the potential of the African digital economy, I just want to put it out there and say, how do we do it? Do we have concrete, actionable solutions that maybe you can maybe talk about in terms of infrastructure gap? How do we fill up that gap? How do we ensure that the policies, and Ms. Nshuti has mentioned it earlier, How do we work with our telco operators to have interoperability of networks, for instance, interoperability of payments? So I just want you, honorable ministers, in 2 to 3 minutes, talk to us and tell us what it is that the African continent needs to do to ensure that it is a reality, that the AfCFTA digital trade protocol can be implemented effectively. I will start with Honorable Co-Champion, Honorable Minister of the Republic of Nigeria, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I knew it was inevitable that you would start with me. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a long day, so permit me to stand on all existing protocol. I'd just like to start from probably where the first speaker started and to commend the Secretary General and the Secretariat for taking on this mandate so seriously. And I would like to rephrase your question, not what can we do, what are we already doing? So in Kinshasa, about 3 weeks ago, the ministers responsible for trade have already come up with an action plan, which I presented on the roadmap for digital trade. I wouldn't tell you now because we want you to be here till Saturday, till the closing. And we also want to take the input from the discussions that will happen at this forum. But basically, we know fully well that the time for implementation is now. I've heard a few comments about enough talk. And so it's gratifying that we've gone beyond talk to identify how to tackle the challenges that we all know in standardization, in communication, in synergizing and alignment. And the program that we've put in place for Africa is indeed an exciting one. I am very excited, I'm very committed, and that's why we're here, the ministers, and you heard from the president as well. So I'll hold my fire in terms of reading out what it is that we are already doing, but just suffice to tell the forum that it cuts across all sectors, it cuts across digital public infrastructure, it cuts across galvanizing investment into Africa for the digital space, it cuts across implementation, standardization, making sure that e-commerce, movement of goods that are riding on technology, making sure that all the synergies that are needed for both goods, trading goods and services and trading goods enabled by technology, making sure that our people are ready for digital trade, the awareness, the education, the sensitization. The protocol is a robust one, making sure that more people know what is in it and what is in the annexes. So enough said, I'd like to stop now, but just to say that we've gone past what are we hoping to do. We all know that hope isn't quite a strategy. We will be delighted to tell you what we are doing and how we can all play our part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I will now turn to Honorable Minister Tal Parks for the same question, really, how can we accelerate the development and affordability of digital infrastructure? Access mobile networks and digital payments, because when we talk about digital infrastructure, we are referring to all these aspects. We are talking about mobile network, we are talking about digital payment systems. So how do we concretely accelerate the development and affordability of digital infrastructure in a way that it promotes equitable access and really directly benefits the people that Madam Nshuti were talking about earlier? Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator, and once again, good afternoon and all protocol observed. I think all of us agree and understand what the challenges are. Inadequate infrastructure, skills, capability, and infrastructure would include both digital infrastructure, but also logistics infrastructure. But our reality is that we would want to leapfrog and accelerate implementation, notwithstanding the limitations that we have. And I think that part of the solution is in agglomerating our efforts. And by agglomerating, I mean a focus on ensuring that we possibly consolidate our efforts in regional hubs from which we're able to build. because we're not going to be able to build the infrastructure in the short term. We're going to have to take fuller advantage of the collective infrastructure that we now should share to ensure access for everybody. So you almost create equity in the infrastructure that already exists and consolidate on the infrastructure that already exists. And from there you build. So I think that we need to have regional hubs taking into account the capability of the respective hubs. But that is on the basis of an understanding that these resources now become universally accessible to those within that region that are able to take advantage of that. And then secondly, I think that we need to, in the same vein, identify what capability we need to accelerate and identify which institutions we're going to concentrate effort in building that capability. So that when yes, of course, digital literacy is important, but you also need the ability to innovate, the ability to think about solutions, and for the investments to be made to link to those solutions. Therefore, given again the limitation of resources, rather than trying to get every university on the continent to, certainly everybody should accelerate digital skills, but we must create specialized institutions in the continent that enable us to build that capability so that we can find solutions and design solutions for our own unique environments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Sebaizi, same question. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I don't know where to start and where to end, because almost everything has been said this morning and this afternoon. But this topic of digital trade is very, very exciting, and I'm tempted to join the team of champions, because looking back what we are doing in Rwanda, I tend to believe that digitization is a solution to everything that we do on a daily basis. Let me start by emphasizing what President HH did say this morning, instructing the Secretary General of AfCFTA to establish a transaction team at the AfCFTA Secretariat. Some time back, I shared with the Director Demeter, who is the Director of Customs, the idea that if we want to digitize trade across the continent, if we want to monitor the movement, cross-border movement of goods and services, can we have a screen room at the AfCFTA Secretariat where we can watch all transactions taking place at all borders in Africa? Is that possible? Is that possible to bring together all the transactions in trade and services, trade and goods, all the operations of payment, we bring them together to implement this protocol on AfCFTA digital trade? I think a lot of work has been done. We just have to connect the dots and bring everything together to see how they can operate. So I want to share, it will be fair to share with you 4 examples of how digitization can solve all problems that we have across all sectors. In Rwanda, we have digitized all government services. We provide more than 100 services to our citizens, to our businesses, through a digital platform. So literally, no one needs to come to my office, no one needs to go to any government office today, because they can get all government services on one platform called Irembo. The second example, we have digitized all the administrative processes in government. When I joined the ministry, I literally found no job to do because I can sign all the documents, see everything on my iPhone. So which means I don't need to be in the office at all because everything has been digitized through what we call government smart admin. The third example I want to give you, I have not touched cash for the last 2 years because of the mobile payment system that we have integrated across the board in my country. Fourth, I just want to limit myself to the fourth one. For government transparency, we have a procurement system. So you can bid and get selected on anything using the e-procurement, whether you are procuring goods or whether you are applying for a job. Even for government job application, you can just do your exam, get corrected instantly, know whether you get the job or you don't get it, and no one has to interfere with the process. So those are just practical examples where digital solution can be applied in every sector. And we have been talking about challenges to facilitate SMEs to access digital technology. We have to do just 3 things as government. One, if we could ensure access to connectivity to our citizens. And second, if we can ensure that our people have access to the devices, the smartphones. We may have some transaction done on the traditional phones, but smartphones are now necessary in this era to be able to integrate into the economy. And third, we just have to focus on building our capacities on constant basis to make sure that everyone understands the application of digital tools to everything that we do. And this is possible. I am worried that most of our youth, most of our young people, they spend most of their time using digital technologies and digital devices on social media, whereas they can use those tools on something that is more important than just going live on social media. So I just want to highlight all those and limit myself here because I think everything has been done. We just have to integrate it into this digital protocol, this protocol on digital trade in the AfCFTA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sebaizi, for all these examples, concrete examples of policies and initiatives that the government of Rwanda has undertaken to ensure that the nation or the country is digitized and is now even turning into a cashless society from hearing from what you are saying. So I would like to turn to Honorable Minister Mutati, with again the same question: how do we accelerate really the implementation of this digital trade protocol, taking into account the importance of inclusivity? And if I may, maybe in your response, Honorable Minister, if you can also touch upon policies or let's say mechanism to ensure that the digital tools and platforms that are being promoted, let's say within the AfCFTA framework, are user-friendly, are friendly for the MSMEs, and they can use them without any problem. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. I do admire my colleague from Rwanda for not having touched cash for some time. I haven't touched it for a different reason, and the only reason is that I don't have it. So that's the only reason I haven't, touched cash. And my colleagues who are ministers of trade know better than I do in terms of facilitating trade, cross-border trading, and things like that. My main priority in technology is to provide connectivity as much as is practically possible. So digital infrastructure has become a P1. So to drive digital infrastructure, we are putting in all manner of technology, including at the border, to simplify transaction. What we have seen is that the graph for financial inclusion in this country has been rising year on year. And one of the reasons it's been rising is that the private sector, mainly telcos, are providing little facilities, credit facilities, to those that ride on their platforms, to those that are doing small transactions. And this area of business has been growing quite a bit. So private sector are driving the process. Around cross-border, one of the things we haven't been able to achieve is, first of all, whereas we are connected, most of our SMEs complain about the cost of communication across borders. And it's a bit embarrassing that us ministers of trade, particularly in SADC, have been engaged in the conversation called Rome Like Home. And this conversation is gone on for a number of years to get all the countries to agree Rome Like Home. So now we want to start with bilateral Rome Like Home, because that facilitates trade, particularly for SMEs. So we are engaged with our colleagues in Malawi to do a Rome like Home, and also colleagues from Namibia for Rome Like Home, purely to facilitate trade and movement across borders. So we think that you begin to do those things that facilitate from technology perspective, then our colleagues from commerce pick it up on issues that are associated with trade. So for us, we are enablers, and we just hope that colleagues from commerce can do what they know best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you also for these examples that are concrete examples of what we are doing to facilitate cross-border trades, leveraging on the technology. And here, I'm not sure if our speaker from Zenith Bank is connected. Colleagues, is he online? Yes, he's online. Mr. Lanre Oladimeji, can you hear me? We cannot hear you. Let's try again, please. Okay. Can you hear me? We can't hear you in the room. Okay, we can't hear you in the room, so probably there is an issue with the speaker. Okay. While we... Technical team, please, let's see if we can sort out this issue. But in the meantime, we also have in the panel the private sector, of course. About access to finance. His Honorable Minister mentioned the costs for SMMEs to trade across border. I've also learned that apparently on the continent, the average cost of a gigabyte, 1 gigabyte, is $4.5 US, which is quite expensive. So these are challenges that we need to tackle, and I think from the intervention of the Minister, Honorable Minister Mutati, what we can also get is that we need this type of collaboration between the various ministries. Yes, we negotiate and we implement with the Ministry of Trade, but the other departments also are very key, and so the whole notion of partnerships within our governments and also with the private sector is very important. But we are waiting for Mr. Lanre, but now I would like to go to our SMME, Mr. Miyoba Hamuhuma. You've heard the policymakers, who are responsible for creating that, I would say, conducive environments for SMMEs, young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, to flourish. And of course, we are talking about digital trade, and we are talking about the importance of inclusivity in the implementation of this digital economy. So I want to have maybe just your first, impression based on what you've heard from the mornings, from our leaders, our ministers here, you and SME who are on the ground. What are your first impressions? What do you live on the ground and you want to share with us? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. All protocols observed. Good afternoon, everyone. I think before I start my contribution, I want to say a huge thank you to organizers for inviting me. I'm happy that you are being inclusive. Whenever we are having such kind of forums, let us be inclusive. Let us ask ourselves, is everyone here? What do I mean by that? Is everyone from other sectors also included here? So it's good that you're hearing from the horse's mouth, and I'm happy that I'm here, and I'll be able to share with you. Yeah, firstly, I think a lot of things have been said, and we appreciate them. But as somebody with disability, and also colleagues that are into, of course, into entrepreneurship, I'm talking about those possibilities that are doing businesses. It's not an easy thing. There are so many challenges that we are facing on the ground. I think the first thing is that I think there is lack of engagement from the policymakers. Most of these policies, I think they're made out of assumptions. We assume on behalf of people with abilities for that entrepreneurship. I'll give a very good example. I'll just give a very good, like here in Zambia. Of course, we have got what we call the CDF, that is Community Development Funds. Now, the government has now centralized these kind of services in the regions. Now, when tenders are floated, be it on the platform, you find that they're not in an accessible format. We have got people that are visually impaired. They're in PDF. How do you think these people are going to participate? Because you can never boast of development when the other sector is left behind. Of course, we are good at saying that we should not leave anyone behind. But it's time when we translated ways into action. Not only that, it's also very costly for people with abilities to go into business or to conduct their business effectively. Why? Because of inaccessible transport system. For you to go and just order merchandise in town, it's very difficult for you to use public transport. First, they have to charge you for their wheelchair. If maybe you're going through, if others that are not maybe using wheelchairs, maybe that are blind, of course, you have to go with an aid. And how much is that? Not only that, I think there is also the aspect of digital literacy gap. Very few people with abilities that are into business, or just people with abilities in general, are well equipped with ICT. And I want to give a very good living example. I remember that was in 2015. That time I was working for Cheshire Homes. So the Lions Club organized some wheelchairs. And then I was requested to go and hand over these wheelchairs with the Honorable Minister here, Honorable Felix Mutati. And that was at Ndeke Hotel. Now I want to say it, if there are people that have known that have got a big heart and inclusive, is Honorable Mutati. I'm not saying this because he's here to buy his face, no. Naturally, that's how he is. So as after handing over these wheelchairs, now there's this woman, in fact, also she has got a disability. I only hope the minister will remember that instance. That was in 2015 at Ndeke Hotel. So this woman, she has got a disability, and she has got a son with a disability. So now we're handing over the wheelchair to this gentleman. So now I remember the minister asking, so what do you do for a living? She was like, no, I sell sweets and also crackers. Then the minister was like, okay, this is a good thing, and I'm also going to help you. I'll add on, of course, on your capital. So after that, then I asked this woman, I said, now what challenges do you face apart from this? Of course, I've got this business. So I was like, it's difficult for me to market my goods, like crackers. Then I was like, why can't you also try maybe like to ask somebody, or maybe just try to sell via Facebook? She said, firstly, I don't know even how to use Facebook. I don't have an iPhone. So it's very difficult for me. And maybe those people that are going to be seeing things that I'm doing per Facebook, they might maybe come and attack me. You cannot laugh at her, no? It's because there's a lack of knowledge in this particular area. So there's a lot of things that we need to do, especially leaders. Even in government, if you're going to see to it that, or if you want to see to it that people have bit also their lives, they improve, just like it was being said in the morning. Let's ensure that even in the policies that you are making, let us consult people on the ground, people with abilities. They could also contribute because they know their problems and they know how best to solve their problems. But not only that, even these decision-making positions, let us also consider people with abilities. Now, I was very impressed the time when I was in Rwanda that time. I found that gentleman, the MP with the albinism, I don't know if he's still there, Honorable Minister. It was very exciting to hear how he was sharing with us. Us, you are being consulted in a number of things by our government. If you want to do business, they'll ask us, how best can we serve you? Of course, I'm not condemning anyone. Even our governments are doing good things. But I feel we could go an extra mile so that we can make sure that each and everyone feels that they belong to that society. Remember, disability is not a limitation to wealth creation. We can make it. All that we need is just a platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for, I would say, this testimonial, which again reminds us that the road is still long, that there are so many aspects to this, work that we are doing, or let's say this agenda that we are trying to implement. You mentioned, of course, the lack of knowledge, lack of information, the importance to actually involve the targets people in the formulation of the policies, and maybe even in the designing of the solution, the tools, the digital solutions that we are putting out there. When we actually come up with solutions, innovative solutions, are we sure that it actually it can be accessible or accessed by the people who are, let's say, disabled, or etc. So that is very important. And again, we are not going to I don't think we will actually end the conversation here. Go into much details, but the idea was really to come up, to bring up all the issues that we are facing. And then, of course, at the end, hopefully, we will get some call to actions from our honorable ministers. I will check with our panelists online. Can you hear us this time?
Good afternoon, madam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you. Thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for joining us online. I just have a quick question for you. You are Zenith Bank, so you guys have got money. And when we talk about MSMEs, growth, etc., access to finance is always an issue. And here we are linking it to digital economy, digital infrastructure, etc. And my question really is, how can digital platforms and fintech solutions enhance access to finance for business led by women, youth, and MSMEs, especially for cross-border transactions within the AfCFTA? And what strategies, I want to follow that question with a question in relation to the strategies that can be adopted to foster trust and security in digital payment systems for the businesses engaged in trade. The floor is yours.
Thank you, the moderator, and permit me to stand on existing protocol. I think my minister is there. Good afternoon, Madam Minister Jumoke Oduwole. And I'm here representing the GMD CEO of Zenith Bank. She sends her regards, and she's supposed to be represented by my line director, Akin Ogunrati. Unfortunately, he was equally not supposed, he was not able to be here. Yes, thank you so much for what you have asked me to speak on. But let me first of all, in the broader perspective for what we see in terms of our support for this particular initiative was looking at how we can, as a bank, see how we can grow the AfCFTA initiative. And what we have done under the support of the DG, Honorable Wankelemele, who met the ESCO of the bank and maybe the chairman, and from that initiative, from that engagement, we were able to actually say we are going to support the growth of this initiative by sponsoring the build of the AfCFTA portal. And that we have started. 4 major modules we supported, or we said we are going to support with. The first is the trade information module. The second is the e-learning module, the e-commerce module, and of course, the trade finance module. We believe if we're able to build this from ground up, it will be able to help the scale of what we are talking about, not having to buy a product that is on the shelf. So we thank you for the opportunity for us to, look at, for you to give, for the opportunity given to the bank to do that. Coming down to what we see in terms of, the growth of MSME in the African region, or yes, in general, we have spoken about a whole lot of things. We've talked about technology. We've looked at culture, compliance, KYC, and the likes. In fact, the other speakers spoke extensively about interoperability, which is a key thing that we should look at as a body if we want to ensure that we see scale. But within what we have seen in Nigeria and what I believe what is currently operational in Nigeria will be almost what can be replicated in all other African countries. And what does the customer want? What do they see that can help them to scale? And that is the issue of cash flow. How do I do transactions and I get instant value for my transaction? We want a situation where when a transaction is consummated, either through card or whatever platform, they want instant value. So whatever we are building, whatever we are discussing, we should look at the opportunity of ensuring that customers are able to get instant cash flow, instant cash for their transactions. And that will reduce the amount of loan. You mentioned that as a bank, maybe we have money to give to the customers, but we want a situation where customers can equally trade in a more efficient way so that the impact of interest on loan is not equally, reducing the margin that they can get. So by having cash flow, they will be able to, trade efficiently, and they will be able to scale their businesses. The population is a very huge opportunity for the African continent. Some say 1.4, 1.5 billion people. So we see it as a way for everybody to have a share in this big pie by ensuring that the continent is able to trade in a very efficient way and people can get value for their transactions almost immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a last question for you, if you don't mind, sorry. What kind of, because we're talking about interoperability, and we know that today our networks are not interoperable because of, the fragmentation that we have. So I want to know what kind of collaboration or regulatory environment do you need from government to scale digital inclusion solutions that reach the underserved?
Yes, you see, we have, there are several, different governments have different, regulation. And we believe regulation is going to play a very key role if we want to ensure that we interconnect, so that there is no barrier. There must be a situation where there will be uniformity in the way we perceive how things should be done generally. We have our own individual, policy that regulates the way things are done in our different countries, in our environment. But we must be able to come together to ensure that if you are coming under the AfCFTA, these are the minimum that is required, that is not so complex, that can be done in a way, can be met by anybody. We are talking about the youth population. The youth population constitutes about maybe 60-something, 70% of the entire African country, which is a very huge opportunity for us to scale. So many of them don't anything complex that they cannot do on their palm, then they will just drop it. So we must come up with regulation, we must come up with infrastructure that is very, very simple, that every state, every country is able to connect with, that will not, not create any complexity. We've been able to do that in Nigeria anyway, because we have a central hub where every bank today, you don't need to start having your own switch. And I think we can replicate that in the entire African region, where every country is able to connect easily for us to be able to scale the business of the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to wind up, and here I think it is, I will ask what tangible action or commitments, honorable ministers, you can make in the next 12 months, for instance, to advance digital inclusion for SMMEs. I know I am putting you under the spot, but I've been told that we need call to actions, and so we would like to hear from you what kind of commitments you think, having had this conversation for the first day, during the first day of the AfCFTA Digital Trade Forum, what can we go away with? Thank you.
You're not putting us under the spot. We came ready. We're here for you. So our full commitment is to give this agenda priority, to make sure that it's measurable steps, so what gets measured gets done, that it's not a talk shop, that we deliver for you, and that the next time we meet, we can have bankable deals, we can have infrastructure, digital public infrastructure that we can point to, we can have measurable success to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mutsati.
Thank you. For us, it will simply be the 3 A's: access, availability, and affordability. And the issue of affordability for the next 12 months will be to look at affordable devices as a key tool to facilitate our trade, particularly for SMEs. That is what we'll look at. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you. I think one of the things that we must overcome is to agree on protocols and not implement them. So I think that the starting point is to align our respective policies and programs to the protocol on digital trade that has been adopted, so that we lay the foundation for implementation. The policies are there, the instruments have been designed. What's critical is whether in our respective countries we can now go to the next level of aligning our policies and implementation programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Sebaizi.
The first thing that we have to do is to agree on the key performance indicators to implement some of these good things that we have said. Can we have a continental dashboard that will track the performance of each and every country on these key indicators that will lead us where we want to be? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this last one, I like it. And I think you told us earlier that technology is not an issue. So can we have at the Secretariat a dashboard that monitors what is happening on the continent in terms of movement of goods and services on on time? I think it's possible. Technology is there, the tools are there, it's possible. And here, thank you so much, Honorable Ministers. I think we have gathered enough to work towards the next Digital Trade Forum and the next even other platforms that we have at the Secretariat. I would like to maybe just open a bracket and mention, for instance, the Biashara Africa that we host. Again, another platform for engagement, and I'm sure that by October, when we will be hosting the next edition of the AfCFTA Business Forum, which is Biashara Africa, we will have some tangible outcomes to report on following this conversation that we had. So we need to give the implementation of the AfCFTA Digital Trade Protocol a priority. We have measurable steps. We have to look at access, affordability, and when we talk about affordability, it's of the devices that we need, and of course we need to be connected. We need our devices to be connected. So affordability also of the connectivity. The implementation of the trades of the protocols that we signed. This is what Honorable Minister Tau Parks mentioned. We sign the policies, we ratify them, we need to implement them. And in fact, one of the protocols we did not mention today is, for instance, the protocol on women and youth in trade, which also complements the protocol on digital trades when we're talking about inclusivity, etc. So let's implement the policies and protocols that we sign. And yes, key performance indicators dashboard to monitor and report the outcomes. So with that, I would like to again thank you, Honorable Ministers, for your time, for your availability, and for your insights. And also thank you to my SMME, and it's also okay, apologies. Apparently, I forgot to ask Zenith Bank for his call to action. It's true. Mr. Lanre, are you still online?
Yeah, I'm here, madam.
Please, my apologies. I forgot you. Call to action?
No, our call to action is to deliver on the AfCFTA portal that we have started. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew this is what you were going to say. We have a project, a beautiful project with Zenith Bank, the AfCFTA, the smart AfCFTA. So I think we will be able to deliver on it with your help and collaboration. So thank you so much, and thank you for listening to me.
kela na chimwemwe ufuna lini ndeo na muntu pamwawela nise kozekazeka nikute mwana ukondana kweka onani ya mama na dada onani ya niche osebela mwafika pawe mingako chifupa tonse tilipo takula ndilani nyumba ya suni yangu osambansoni ni panu takula ndilani tilieka sofunsani vamwafuna tikupeni takula ndilani takula ndilani alendo fikani tenzo kulindilani alendo fikani takula ndilani alendo fikani tenzo kulindilani alendo fikani takula ndilani mukambangoma nati mukaona gule osakutana na mwezi kwenye poni zichalenkoni jilangizeni mwamuchitila kwanu mwafika pawe mingako chifupa tonse tilipo takula ndilani nyumba ya suni yanu osambansoni mipanu takula ndilani tilieka sofunsani vamwafuna tikupeni takula ndilani.
Explore and experience the magnificence that is Zambia. A thrill-seeker's paradise, blessed with some of the most breathtaking adrenaline activities on Earth. Choose from whitewater rafting, to gorge swings, to bungee jumps, and set your inner superhero free. If being up close and personal with nature is more to your liking, then we have just the thing for you. Get to interact with the Big Five in their natural habitat. Fine wining and dining, we hear you say? Say no more and be spoiled for choice with a stunning selection of top culinary experiences, all catered to suit each and every palate. And then there's the nightlife. Grab a drink. Surrender yourself to the ebbs and crescendos of an irresistible beat. Say cheers and get ready to dance the night away. All in the company of the friendliest people you will ever meet. Immerse yourself in the rich culture, movements, colors, pulse, rhythms, and energy that make up the unique fabric of Zambia.
AfCFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, we are running behind time and we shall quickly get into our next and last session for the day. This session is focused on the AfCFTA, Digital Access Promotion, Digitalizing Borders. We're going to learn more on how we can digitalize our borders in Africa and the benefits that this come with for the continent. Before we get into our session, we are going to have a scene setting that will be done by Ms. Ellen Asimwe. Quickly after that, we are going to get into the session and ensure that we get to hear and learn more about what the session this afternoon is focused on. Before we get into it, to quickly proceed due to time, allow me to call upon the moderator of the session, Mr. Geoffrey Mutizwa, to lead us.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening to all of you. I realize the hours have run away from us, but I think in part it's because we've been having some very great conversations, and the fact that this session is dragging on like this, I think for me, is testament to the fact that there are some important conversations that need to be had, and perhaps we need to commit the time to do so. I'm a journalist. I tell stories. I tell African stories every day. Someone said to me, "Oh, hello, Mr. Intra-African Trade." In part because I think it's a story that fascinates me. It's a story, I think, for me that also crystallizes the dream that was started in 1963 at the formation of the African Union. 1963 is special for me because I was also born in 1963, and I therefore tie in very neatly, if I may say so myself, with the goals of the African Union as we know it today. As indicated, we're going to start off our program very shortly with a scene setter, and that's going to be done by Ms. Ellen Asimwe, Deputy CEO, Trademark Africa. Just a quick note on what Trademark Africa is for those who may not know. It is an African aid for trade organization founded in 2010 with a mission to grow intra-African trade and increase Africa's share of global trade while helping make trade more pro-poor and environmentally sustainable. Now, at the moment, it's expanded in recent years to cover 14 countries across East and the Horn of Africa, as well as to Southern and West Africa. With that, may I invite Mr. Simo to come and address us, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or should I say good evening? All protocols observed. I'm very bad with protocols, so please bear with me, but all protocols observed. Oh gosh, I've been freezing in that corner. I don't know whether it was deliberate to keep us awake, but it has certainly worked. And I'm glad to be here with you all celebrating this first forum of the African Digital Trade Forum, and to see many friends from before and new ones that I've met today. I was asked to set the scene of the no-store borders or the digital trade borders for Africa. And you've heard so much this morning around trade in Africa, where we stand, the dire numbers. You've also heard about the global shifts that are happening. But if there's anything that you take away today, it's the word propitious. What is it? Propitious. Can we all say it? Propitious. It's a propitious moment for Africa. If there's nothing we take away, it's the word propitious, because the Honorable President and all the presidents that spoke, the President and the leaders that spoke this morning, were very spot on. With the global shifts that we're seeing, with one sneeze from the US, and the whole of the world, not just Africa, the whole of the world is trembling. And people are asking, but Africa, we are actually only 2 or 3% of the global trade. Should we be bothered? Should we be affected? Yes, we should be affected, because the fact that we are very small in this trade, any little shift, any little wave is likely to wash us over. So we have to get prepared. And I'm so heartened to know that the ministers of trade were in Kinshasa and have come up with an action plan. Because it's been said this morning, and it's been said all the time, digital will help us leap forward. But we can't leap. We can't talk of leaping forward if we don't have the foundations, as we've spoken, and if we don't put in place the appropriate structures, digital structures and infrastructures. But then it's such a precocious moment because time cannot wait for us. At Trademark, we have worked in this sector for 15 years. Putting in place the building blocks for what we are calling no-store borders now. It's been painstaking, it's been slow, it's been worthwhile, especially in Eastern Africa. In the last 10 years, and our founder, Frank Matsat, is here. He was our founder at Trademark, and now he's with TBI. He led us to develop over 100 single SWIFTs, what we call single windows. You know, for you to build a no-store border, you have to first automate and digitize institutions at a country level. If you go to West Africa, there are some institutions that are still using typewriters. Others have moved on to, of course, advanced technologies. If you're in Ghana, if you're in Nigeria, it's very advanced. If you're in some of the smaller countries, they're using typewriters at the borders to type out the manifests and the documents and the approvals. So we've done so much work to automate and digitize. That was the first generation of work. The second generation of work, we then connect those agencies at a country level. The third generation, we connect at a continent, at a corridor level. So for instance, the customs revenues, and I had a call this morning, the customs revenues in Eastern Africa are all connected right now. They can share a single customs document, and they're able to clear from the point of entry. If your goods come in from Mombasa, they are cleared all the way to Rwanda. If they come in from Dar es Salaam, they can be cleared all the way to Burundi with one single transit document. But it has meant that you have to ensure there's data sharing at the institutional level with all the customs at the national, customs at the border. You have to ensure there's connectivity with the bureaus of standards and anyone else related in trade, ministries of trade and the like. And then you have to ensure you're connecting with the others in the country and with the others in the other country. So customs in Tanzania connecting with customs in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Uganda, in Kenya, in DRC. It's taken us 15 years to get here. We cannot afford 15 years. We must do something different. And to congratulate our leaders, we now have a protocol, a digital trade protocol. It took its time coming, but again, it's the first of its kind, we are told, in the world. But for it to work, and Honorable Minister, you mentioned some of the things. For it to work, there are 5 things that I'm going to raise that I hope the panelists will speak to. The first, the political leadership and policy action that is needed to drive this protocol. We've heard of the need to align and to domesticate, to align national policies and to domesticate. I would have loved to hear today the ministers, and it's not too late, Honorable Minister, you're the one left here. I would have liked to hear some statements and actions around domestication and immediately what is going to be done before June by the parliaments. Of course, you cannot dictate what parliament does, but we can set the ground. We can put in place the steps. Because if we don't ratify and domesticate this protocol, we are in trouble. Remember, it's precocious. We have to immediately remove barriers to cross-border data flows. In my country, in Uganda, I can't use Facebook. I have to use a VPN. We have to remove these barriers immediately. I hope tomorrow or Saturday, when the ministers are launching, they make some pronouncements, bold political pronouncements, around the removal of these barriers and freedom for free flow of data. For Africa to leapfrog, we have to let data flow. We have to let it happen. So for me, it's a political issue. Trade is very political. We must get these political statements out. Can you imagine if every time, say, President Trump makes an announcement, if our African president stood up and also made an announcement? We are removing visas. We are allowing free travel in Africa. We are removing border closures. We are opening up. Can you imagine what it would do to our population and to galvanize the whole continent? For those of us who are not yet still so young, it's time for our leaders to take action, and we have seen it happen in the past. The second, we must be wary. Not everything that glitters is gold. We are talking about time and cost to reduce business. We have so many businessmen and women that are taking initiative to go and do trade, but they are being hampered. Now, what's happening with digital trade coming in, we are having all these, I don't want to call them commercial vultures, but you're having everyone coming and promising gold, coming to say, we'll deliver to you scanners, we'll deliver to you single windows at a cost. It becomes more costly because they have to recoup their money. So my advice to you, how can we deliver digital trade and digital transformation without increasing the cost to the traders? You don't want someone to pay $100 to scan their goods at the border. You do not want someone to pay $100 to have their goods pass through the SWIFT. We can still deliver these at cost or with minimal cost. If you look at the WTO trader facilitation agreements, we must deliver these at cost. And as our digital expert at Trademark, Eric Sirali, always says, Alan, we cannot charge expensively. We just must make sure that we're delivering at cost or with very small markup. So ministers, policy leaders, be worried. Not everything that shines is gold. When people come to offer you solutions, make sure you're not making trade more expensive for your people. The third, and it's been said a lot, it has to be inclusive. It has to make business sense. We have to look at the MSAs, we have to look at the women, we have to look at the youth. At Trademark, we have created what we call an ISOCO, a digital market that's already operational in Eastern Africa. Over 100,000 traders are now trading on this portal. It's an Alibaba, it's an Amazon. I hope we can scale it around the continent. It allows for you to know who wants my goods, who is buying, who can I sell to. So my call to you all, can we go digital for trade? Because it's working. I mean, if you're in the US or in Europe, I don't know, people don't even go to the shops anymore. Very few people go to the shops. The older generation, maybe. The younger ones are all online. That's where our generation is. We must make it accessible. We also must make cross-border payments accessible. In East Africa, we're working with central banks. It's been slow, but it's happening. For cross-border payments, we are working with the Gates Foundation. We also have programs with MasterCard. You ask yourself, why are these guys coming here? They are seeing gold. Data is the new gold. It's not oil, it's data. They know that if we can allow people to trade, we'll actually make a difference. So If we can make it inclusive through cross-border payments that allow for one not to lose through currency fluctuations and transactions, can you imagine? I'm talking about the fish traders I've worked with in Eastern Africa who fish in Turkana in northern Kenya. They sell the fish at the border between Uganda and Kenya. They sell this fish as far as DRC, Chad, Tanzania, and Southern Sudan. And for each transaction, they have to be paid in a different currency. But through cross-border payments solutions, we should be able to get them paying through one. I'll quickly come to the last 2 or 3. The fourth is data governance and security. Individual rights to protect their privacy without compromising, of course. We want to go commercial, but we have to protect personal privacy. And this is something that we are passionate about at Trademark. We recently did, during COVID, were able to register around, I think, 150,000 truck drivers because it was, most of the governments had locked the borders and they were not opening up. So we put in place a solution that allowed tracking of truck drivers along the transport corridors from, say, Kenya to DRC to South Sudan. And we put all their data in a system. And let me tell you, this allowed governments to trust, because at the center of trade is trust. Its ability to trace. And but we had to ensure that we fulfill EU regulations. Their data cannot be sold or shared. And finally is the rapid adoption of new technologies. My challenge to the panelists and to us all, we cannot afford 15 years of back-breaking build-up. We can adopt new technologies. At Trademark, we are working with partners to bring on artificial intelligence, AI, to take out blockchain technologies through innovations such as the Trade Logistics Information Pipeline. And later this afternoon, we are going to launch a new program, which I'll ask Frank to speak about shortly, called Twin, that is going to be the backbone of trade for Africa. We already have solutions that are working. Just imagine Kenya trades with Pakistan millions of dollars, but they do not trust each other's documents. But through these platforms, you have trusted frameworks, blockchain technology, data cannot be altered, certificates of origin cannot be altered, bureaus of certificates of standards can't be altered, and this is critical as we trade within Africa and we trade with our partners. We are already deploying smart gates at borders, so no borders are becoming a reality. Smart gates are being installed at Dar es Salaam port, at Kenya, Mombasa port, at the border between Uganda and Kenya, they have already been installed. Just by using technology, iris technology and the rest, you'll be able to get drivers going all the way from Mombasa to DRC without stopping. This is possible for transit cargo. Can you imagine? A whole new world awaits Africa. That means that you'll cut massive amount of time, days, and costs from trading. And then the final bit, should we keep the status quo or should we revolutionize the way we do business? It's a mindset game. I hope the panelists can talk about how we shift the mindsets of our people to adopt to these new technologies. We must align incentives and interests. In whose interest is it for business to remain as it is? In whose interest is it for business to change? I leave you with this question because no borders should be the way we move. For those of you who have traveled in Europe, you'll wake up in Poland and you will know you've gone through Germany, France, and the like. It's possible in Africa. It takes political will and commitment. It will need us to take and adopt new technologies. And as the Honorable President said, it's a precocious moment for Africa. Viva Africa.
I think she deserves another round of applause. The energy, the conviction, especially at this time of the day, really appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Let's quickly move on, but I wanted to give you a sense of what we're going to do before we start so that you know what you're in for the next hour or so. Very shortly, I'm going to be moderating our session. And then after that, as she indicated, there's going to be the launch of Twin. And I think she's teased what it's going to provide. So I am also very much looking forward to it. Without much further ado, let me call upon our panelists. My numbers have been going down by the day. Let me see who remains here and who is standing. First of all, Ms. Lillian Walya, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Zambia. She's here. Thank you, ma'am. Let me ask Frank Massett. He is Senior Advisor and Global Lead for Trade and Infrastructure, Tony Blair Institute. Thank you, sir. Ms. Gugu Siso, she is CEO, Tumeza Enterprises. Online, we're going to be joined by, this is a little later, Mandy Mwendo, Director, Trip Accessories and Beauty Parlor. Now, we're going to try and see if we can catch her as she's trying to cross the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. So we're going to get a real-life experience of an African trader. Hopefully, the infrastructure that we require, which is telecommunications, is not going to fail us today. Felix Chege, he's a founder and CEO, Real Sources Africa. Where is Felix? And last but not least, Demeter Gyang, Director, Customs Administration and Trade Facilitation, AfCFTA Secretariat. Thank you, ma'am. As she walks up, I wanted to share with you a couple of anecdotes. About 2 weeks ago, I was in Djibouti for another AfCFTA Secretariat gathering. This was on special economic zones across the African continent. How do we use them to foster the implementation and produce the goods that we require to increase intra-African trade? And I met a young woman, and I interviewed her. One of the things she said to me that I recall today that I want to share with you was, she says, President Donald Trump of the United States is the best thing that has happened for Africa. I said, what? She said, because he is galvanizing us and giving us the energy and the reason to move faster than we have been moving. And I think it's a message that we also had today. We are late, we need to be moving with speed, and we need to move quickly. The other anecdote is around a story that I did about a year ago. I am from Zimbabwe. I travel very often between Zimbabwe, Zambia, and South Africa, and Beitbridge is my second home. I wrote a story, and I'll ask you and urge you, if you have a chance to Google it, you can just say Mutizwa plus Beitbridge, it will come up. But in that story, I captured the travails of bus and truck drivers who use that port, and how it's been alleviated by the introduction of a border post that's been upgraded with funding from AfCFTA Bank. And the difference that digitalization makes when it's done. But it's also a story in how not to do it to an extent. Because while the Zimbabwean border was upgraded on the Zimbabwean side, the South African side wasn't. And now what you find is, whereas Zimbabwe would take you 2-3 hours to cross, it is now the exact opposite. It is South Africa that is lagging. And therein lie the lessons. Okay, too much talking from me. Let me get the questions going, because that's my job and that's why I've been brought here. Let me start with you, Liniani, if I may. And let's perhaps just begin with what you are doing, what you are working around. I'm not going to ask you to give background because we need to move fast, like we said, right? To accelerate the implementation of digital trade across the African continent. Ma'am, starting with Zambia, of course.
Thank you very much for that question. And good afternoon, Honorable Minister and the distinguished delegates. So I just want to emphasize that looking at the question that you have presented, we need to be able to know, do we have the goods that we want to trade as Africa? That's number one. And in having those goods, how do we facilitate access to affordable finance? So the financial system in this digitization is very important. Do we have institutions to move these goods? So having government departments have the necessary tools to facilitate the movement of goods and services is very key. and also to ensure that these systems are safe. Do we have the legal and regulatory frameworks to make sure that the goods are safe as they move? So issues were emphasized by our heads of state, trust, issues of security, issues of safe trade were emphasized during the previous session. So having said that, as Zambia, we have developed our border development strategy. We also have our e-commerce strategy with the hope that with these and other legal and regulatory frameworks that we have in place, like the cybersecurity related laws, we should be able to safely trade and contribute to accelerating AfCFTA. Most importantly is the inclusion of the private sector in this whole discussion. How do we make sure that they have the goods to trade? Thank you.
Thank you. Would you have some targets for me? One of the things I've been told to do today is to come back with targets that are measurable in terms of these objectives that you've just outlined.
Thank you very much. In terms of systems, in as far as government institutions are concerned, so the targets is to make sure that the payment systems are automated. The systems for certification are automated. We have systems that will allow smooth or seamless flow of trade, so we need things like smart gates. We need electronic payment systems. We need to make sure that we are connected to internet, so fiber optic connectivity becomes very important. We need to make sure that institutions are automated. We also need to make sure that systems are speaking across country, and issues of tracking of what we are trading. So if we are going to make progress, we need to make sure that we're tracking. And on the part of the private sector, is there financial inclusion? And what is the cost of this finance? Do they have systems that will help them be able to post their goods and somebody very far can see those products? So market platforms become key. And also the payment systems are key. So those are some of the priorities.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Let me come to you, Frank. And Frank, it's pretty much the same question that I'm going to be asking as I'm going to ask all the other panelists at the beginning before we delve into the individual stories. So it's around trying to understand what key objectives from your side you hope digitalization will achieve in facilitating the increase that we require so that the agency that's been created by a reordering of the global trading order gives us some benefits.
Yeah, thanks, Godfrey. And it's great to be here with you today, Honourable Minister, all protocol observed. I think it's the potential for this digital trade protocol to really be a game changer for the way that we trade across Africa is huge. And I think it extends in a number of ways. Alain, the Deputy CEO of Trademark, mentioned it, that the digital technology that now is there can help us reimagine the way that we move goods across borders, and we work with, we trade with countries within the continent. And I think it's very important to recognize that borders have always been a place, Godfrey, where you've got a physical barrier, and a physical barrier there in a way to try to stop trade, oddly enough. So the way that a lot of our borders are configured, the old way has been to create a physical barrier where the flow of goods can be controlled. But I think the power of technology is to change that completely. That you imagine the border not as a place where you stop goods, but the goods just move quickly, seamlessly, because they're backed up by a digital public infrastructure. They're backed up by different trade agencies being automated. As you said, PS, cargo tracking there, risk management systems, but most importantly, a digital public infrastructure that can support that. And there we're talking about digital IDs, particularly for the traders, basically very efficient cross-border data transfers, and then a payment system that operates right across the continent and operating on a platform that's seamless and open to all. So this is, I think, so if I was to think about what I dream about, this would mean that there's no border, all right? There would be a digital border that isn't there. It might be a border.
Frank, you need to say it again. Did you say you don't want to see any borders?
I'm sorry, what was that, Godfrey?
Did you say you don't want to see any borders?
I would love to see no borders.
Wow.
Yeah. But perhaps I'm being too optimistic. But the potential for a border to be reimagined with the technology we have, and actually the physical barrier not to be there, is within our grasp. I think some people call it a no-stop border, but in my view, the digital trade protocol, everything that's been done with the trade facilitation work that Demeter leads, it can happen, and it is within our grasp. We should do that. But it needs the political will that Alain talked about, and it needs us to focus on getting a good digital public infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
Because that underpins all of this. It underpins digital trade facilitation, digitally enabled borders,
Yeah.
and all of this will help unlock our trade.
I am certainly hoping that Alain will take a concept and take it across the continent so that our drivers do not need to stop. And as you say, if we can kill these borders, it's a game changer. I live to live that day, to see that day. I wanted to pose a question to you, which I'm going to ask and park and ask you to think about. You spoke about increased public spending to support some of these initiatives, but we also know that our governments are battling various other spending pressures at a particularly difficult time. How do we do it creatively without increasing the fiscal burden? I'll park that question with you and come to Gugu. Gugu, you are busy, you are trading, and you have dreams. This is your opportunity to spell out what you'd like to see digital trade doing.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. Can everyone hear me? Yes, I know, guys. It's the end of the day. Everyone's tired. We've been listening to everyone. But you know what? I think let's treat this like a family meeting. The die-hard fans stayed behind, so I think we can be candid with each other. Anyway, once again, my name is Gugu Siso. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tumeza Enterprises. So Tumeza is a fintech. Is there a bit of a lag? Huh. Tumeza is a fintech, right, that provides early invoice settlement for the logistics sector. But the reason why I'm here today is to speak on behalf of our products, which is Tumeza Lite. So Tumeza Lite coordinates the movements of goods for cross-border traders. We handle the process for them end to end, from quotations, clearance of goods, as well as pickups and drop-offs. So as you can hear, this is a thankless task, I would say. It's one where you're constantly in conflict with drivers, with custom agents, and of course, sometimes with cross-border traders themselves. So the vision that I have, to be honest, right, I wouldn't say that it's quite as gigantic as Frank's one for a non-stop border future, looking at the fact that we're dealing with the barriers on a day-to-day basis. So I think my dream is a little bit more realistic. Just wishing for just simpler documentation. Because as you can imagine, on a day-by-day basis, we're based on the Zambian and Zimbabwean border posts, specifically Vic Falls and Livingston. Not quite sure how many of you have been on that border. It's a little bit sleepy, but still does quite a bit of volume. So on a day-by-day basis, right, you're fighting with documentation. Today, moving tomatoes is free, it's easy. Tomorrow, the rules have changed, right? Imagine having to tell a cross-border trader that, so the quotation that I gave you yesterday is no longer applicable today. You've messed up this person's entire trajectory, and they're like, you've wasted my money, right? So the documentation, just the processing just needs to be simpler. The second one that I would say is just being predictable about what to expect on a day-by-day basis. I'm speaking to all of us in the room, especially if you've ever traded anything within COMESA, SACU, whichever it is. Predictability is the cornerstone for business. Once things are up in the air is when things start falling apart, right? And this is even before we start talking about payment systems. So I'm Zimbabwean, not quite sure how many of you are familiar with doing business in Zim. So my sister here next door is already like, I can commiserate. So moving cash for us across the borders is a nightmare. I think the Zambian cross-border traders have it a little bit easier with Airtel money because they are connected a little bit within the continent. But for us, just moving cash across the borders is quite a bit of an issue. So the payments issue, I would say, is one that slots within my dream, right? So maybe for me not to hog the spotlight, because I will speak, till the end of time for this. In conclusion, I would say an end-to-end system that allows a cross-border trader to move their goods from the comfort of their home. As Nshuti has alluded to earlier on, that we heard from a cross-border trader from Livingston who had to come to Lusaka to get her goods and then go back home, leaving her daughter behind. That should not make sense in the 21st century. You should be able to handle all your trade from the comfort of your home, which I think is something that us at Tumeza were really trying hard to do. But as said, there are barriers to us being able to provide that vision for the cross-border traders sitting at home. Thank you, Godfrey.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Gugu. I'm going to steal Standard Bank's, I think it was a payoff line a few years ago, and apply it to you. Simpler, better, faster. It's what you're looking for. And I'm also going to recommend that you give some advice to President Donald Trump about predictability. Felix, the turn is yours. You and I have engaged on several platforms. We've spoken about the work that you do. We've spoken about the challenges that you see across borders, trying to move goods from the eastern parts of Africa to southern Africa. Trade that is not happening.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. Yes, indeed, we've been in quite a number of engagements and panels before. For me, allow me today to speak as who I am. I'm a trader turned transporter, and now, ideally, they call me a techpreneur. But ideally, what I do, I move products. My main job is that I work with manufacturers, distributors, and suppliers to enable them or guarantee them of opening up a market base for their products in different countries with all the hassle of logistics, warehousing, market development, access to finance, and finally aspects to do with custom clearance and documentation. The future to me of what I'd like to see a united Africa looking like, I'd focus more on demand creation. I'd like to see a point whereby we can create demand using technology. The lessons I've learned in my transport and commodity trading businesses is that demand is the start of everything. If you can guarantee anyone that I'll be able to consume your product upon it reaching to a certain border point, then all the other services from logistics to warehousing to financing become a useful tool that needs to be implemented. For me, technology is more of an enabler, but the demand that needs to be created for technology to be used is what we need to be really discussing about. For me, everything starts from demand creation. If today there is demand for shoe polish in DRC, and I'm sure that I'll have a consumer of my shoe polish, everything I'll have to do has to align so that shoe polish can get to the consumer. If we don't address that matter using technology, is it via the digital platforms, is it via TikTok, is it via Instagram, is it via websites, whatever needs to be done, for me, everything has to start with demand creation, then we can go to the next stages. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Felix. Thank you. I remember one of the figures that was mentioned in the afternoon by the Secretary General of the AfCFTA was that by 2050, we're looking at digital trade. I think he said $712 billion. It requires a lot of the actions that we're talking about. I raise that because I'm coming to you, Demeter. I made you listen to all of them because you are going to have to bring it all together, right? But first of all, let's talk broadly. what you envisage ought to be done and the kind of objectives. I don't know whether you want to speak from an AfCFTA secretariat perspective or as an African, which you're allowed to do.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you to everyone who has spoken before me. Let me tie it up a little bit together between what everyone has said in the sense of what we are thinking in the continent or what we have seen in the continent. One of the tools that will then bring increase intra-Africa trade to reality is actually digitalization. It will reduce time, it will reduce costs, and you know, to the businessman, they say time is money, and then you are talking about that time, and then you are talking about money. So one of the focus we have at the AfCFTA is really digitalization, because then we realize at the AfCFTA that this is a key pathway to then walking the talk, bringing to reality the things that we have written down in those protocols. One of the things we then did at the AfCFTA to get a comprehensive view of what we think is happening in the continent is that we undertook field assessments. We have looked at around 50 border crossings in the continent, and that is to then get a sense of what then the trader that is trying to do their trade across the borders, what they experience, and then what it is like for them. And it threw up a lot of things, which is what I'm going to speak to you about. We realized that there is a huge infrastructural deficit. We read about it, but then we witnessed it firsthand. And then we also realized that this infrastructural deficit at the borders, they differ. You see, all borders are not the same when it comes to infrastructure. Some are ahead of others. You gave example of the Bight Bridge when you spoke, but then you need to visit some borders and then compare them to Bight Bridge. And then you will see the huge deficiency in terms of infrastructure. Then, the second thing we realized is that systems are needed. And then you also realize that within the systems that are needed, there is also this disparity. So you have, it was mentioned a lot today, you have some of those borders that you go to, and everything is still really analog. And when I say analog, not even a typewriter. So it is your biro and your hard notebook with which then you document the traders, and then you imagine if there is a huge traffic within this border post, what this creates. And then you have some that are actually pretty digital. So you have this disparity in the continent in terms of the borders. But one thing for sure is that all borders still do need something for us to make intra-Africa trade a reality. The third thing you then notice that we need, and we see from where we sit in the Secretariat, is the people element. The people element, if I were to reverse this, I'll put the people element first. Because first, there is the political will that Mr. Allen spoke to. Somebody once said, we'll call each other in Africa my brother. You know, I see you, you're Zambian, I say my brother, my sister, until you want to cross my border. That's when that brotherhood, that's when I see the differences between me and you. You know, so the people element, the political will for two governments to sit down and say, you know, we want our systems to connect. We want to exchange information. We want to align our working hours. We want to align our official language. We want to be able to put systems in place that will ensure that your export is my import. Because when you look at it from that point, your import is my you know, so when you look at it from that point, that you can sit together and say, yes, we want to do this. That is the most critical thing. Before you then talk about infrastructure and systems. So this is what we saw. And so what we then figured out is that one of the first processes we have to undertake to facilitate member states to undertake at the continent level is what the Minister of Rwanda spoke about, that we then need to have the digital, the documents for trading digitized. Trading has changed platforms. Trading is now digital, but the processes and procedures are lagging behind. The processes are not digital yet. So we figured that one of the things to do is that then for the continental trading documents, we need to digitize them. So we started with a certificate of origin, which we are trying to digitize to e-certificate of origin, because some of our member states are already issuing e-certificates, and ours is still in analog form. The Bible says, don't put new wine in old wineskins, it will burst. So we are also working at transit, because transit is critical. So how do we then ensure that the documents for transit are also digital? We are also, one of the key deliverables that we then put ahead before any other thing was then our AfCFTA e-tariff book. So you have the tariffs in an e-form. And so why would you then have the borders in a very manual form? Why would you then have the borders in a way that the customs officer there is not even able to access our e-tariff book? Thank you.
I wish I could give you more time to talk about that. E-books and e-tariffs and give that information to everyone. But I wanted also to acknowledge, I think all of us have got various irritants when we cross borders, when we fly in. I was very happy to arrive at the airport here and not be asked to fill in papers. Digitalization has arrived, right? Great progress, we salute that. But I was still asked to fill in some forms for the equipment that I brought in to broadcast from here. Okay. Hopefully one day, I fill those in Johannesburg, transmitted electronically. The time I arrive in Lusaka, it's done and dusted. A couple of questions for you, if I may, Demeter, before I leave you. You spoke about the infrastructure that's required, and it talks to the issue I raised around the cost of the work that needs to be done around that infrastructure. Please answer me who is doing that funding and how we can do it better. Secondly, you spoke about systems. I imagine these systems ought to be harmonized if they are to work seamlessly.
Yeah, I'll start from the second one. Yes, the other key mandate is to ensure harmonization, because harmonization then is key. We are talking about continental trade here. If I am not harmonized with my next door neighbor, and it will still take the time to cross the borders, because then some of the experiences we have had is that you get to one side of the border, or they finish your documentation, they finish everything. Then you cross over to the other side, and then they repeat the same process. But it's not even just repeating the same process. You find out that in some of the corridors that we have visited, that the systems are different. Even the documentation process, the languages are different. And so you have been documented on the other side in English. When you cross over to the other side, it's French. And you have to start all over again. And because of the governance systems, you realize that what you might be asked in an English documentation varies from what you will be asked for. So harmonization is really key. Harmonization, I'll give you another simple example of harmonization. Working hours. This is expected even from the World Customs Organization systems, right? So working hours, I'll give you an example of Benin and Nigeria. You're literally seeing the man across the other side, but he has closed because there is a time difference. Because there's a time difference. So he has closed, but you can still see him. And you've cleared the goods from the side of the border, and they can't go because the other side has closed. So it appears simple, but this is fundamental. That is so harmonization, yes. Then you talk of the systems themselves. You can harmonize them. You don't really have to use the same governance systems for you then to harmonize. All you then need is a set of standardized data so that the other system can understand and interpret the data you send. And you can build interfaces that can then help you do this. So that's why I say technology is not our problem. It is the will, the political will to then do it. It is the political will to then say, connect my Asikuda system to the Simba system. It can be done. It can really be done. So that is systems. You asked me 2 questions.
Yes, go on.
Okay. So who is going to provide the money? That is a very critical question. Okay, that one is to Frank. Oh, Frank is going to provide the money. Yeah, he can provide the money. Even Alan can provide the money. There are a couple of them in this room that can provide the money. And the MD of Better Than Cash Alliance can provide the money. So the money, we have to partner. We have to partner. And in partnering, we also have to be conscious as Africa that grants are fast dwindling, they are going down. So we have to think of partnerships that then allow whoever is funding these projects to recoup their money, but recoup their money in a way that is not injurious to the traders or to the government or to the financier themselves. So we are thinking about these PPP models. What we have done at the AfCFTA after our assessments is to then identify critical borders that would need this support. And what we have also done is that we are then speaking to partners that speak to us to say, you might want to consider investing in this. But since you asked me this, let me also answer in another way. Africa has some big-time businesses that are owned by Africans. What I'm saying is that Africa has a couple of billionaires. And in my own thinking, we can also raise this money within. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Frank, you want to come in?
Yeah. I think you're really asking me about the financing aspect, right? And I mean, I think I agree with Demeter that there are hardware problems at borders, particularly, that need to be solved. And, you know, I guess over 15 years, you know, we worked on about 20 of those. And it can be funded with development partner assistance, but let's be upfront, that's dwindling. And, you know, with what's happened with the dissolution of USAID, aid cuts have happened all around the world. So we need to be thinking hard about how we mobilize capital. And, you know, we need to think hard about how we include the private sector. Now, what we've got to make sure of is that investment, be it in borders or infrastructure, is good value for money for the taxpayer. Because however you skin the cat, a PPP demands some form of user charge. And Demeter, you know and I know that borders can become monopolies. They can become a cash cow for people who run concessions not from an efficiency standpoint, but from a profit maximization standpoint. So these concessions, and there are many, Godfrey, you mentioned one, I think the charge to go through that border you mentioned is about $250 for a truck. That's quite a lot of money that in the end the consumer has to pay. I'm not criticizing that, but I think it's a balance. When we structure PPPs, they can't drive the costs of trade up through the roof. If they do, what are we achieving? We're only achieving inefficiency, and the consumer pays more. And I think for me, that needs to be really thought through. I will give you an example. Kasembalesa, it has a concession. Demeter, I think the charge is $300 one way. When we look at the investment there and you amortize it across the traffic flows, the concessionaire has made about 20 times the initial investment. That concession cost could be as low as $30 a truck. Now, all I'm saying, and just taking that example, because I know on the Zambian side where we sit, it has ended, you have to be careful. Right? These things need regulation. And when you talk about a digital public infrastructure, I think one also has to be careful, because you, again, don't want to create systems that aren't open access, that are not, not just purely commercial or monopolies. So PPPs are really important, and I think they can work well, but these are some of the considerations. And certainly with borders, there has been good experience and there's been not so good experience. And I think we need to be careful of that. So the metric should be, for a border, how long does it take to cross? How much does it cost? Are people happy using it? You were talking about me being too optimistic. I have seen these things happen in East Africa where actually things move really fast and cross-border traders just move across just with their IDs. But I think, that's not the case everywhere. But all I would say is governments do need to invest in this cross-border infrastructure. Yeah. And it's not just the private sector that can do it.
And I think the people, in this instance, perhaps business, would be happy to pay if the service is efficient, because it will help them actually to cut down costs. Because when you have an efficient system, you're cutting down on corruption, you're cutting down the amount of time people have to spend at the border, and they will certainly be happy to pay for that. But we do know that it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to work.
Well, that's it. It's got to be properly regulated, like any good concession. Because to run just with a PPP approach without controlling the cost and making sure it's efficient doesn't solve the problem.
100%. And I was going to ask Linian to come in and talk about it from a government perspective, whether these are ideas perhaps that could be explored without, of course, governments abdicating their responsibility in terms of putting up infrastructure that's used by the general populace, because we don't want to make it a payable service to the extent that it excludes everybody, or the majority of the people at least.
Yes, thank you very much. So for the case of Zambia, we have borders that are under concession. They are still under construction. But we have also toll gates that are under concession and are running. So I would say that where government is constrained in terms of finance and has a lot of things to do with their finance, social services, the PPP model, when structured properly, becomes an alternative to raising finance. So we just need to make sure that there's a balance, has been said. We don't add costs, but we make sure that the trade is facilitated. Thank you.
And I think it speaks to my next question, which is around inclusion. We know, I think the numbers that we were given is that 90% of Africa's SMMEs are run by women and youth. And we know these are perhaps not the most resourced, and therefore we must make sure that it's equitable. So let me ask our business people, and also let me ask at the same time if we can try and see if we can get in touch with our entrepreneur, Mandy Mwendo, and if they can try and see if we can connect with her and catch up with her and see where she is. Agugu, do you want to come in and talk about inclusion and how we make sure that while we're digitalizing these borders, we are carrying everybody who is key and important in the whole conversation? Felix, you next.
Thanks for that, Geoffrey. Apologies, I'm a bit short. So I'll speak about our Tumeza Light product. I think it's the most appropriate one underneath the topic of inclusion, right? So just to give you a bit of background, once again, Tumeza Light manages the process end-to-end for cross-border traders, right? Movements of goods, clearance, pickup, drop-offs. That's what we do. So I love the fact that you mentioned that the bulk of the traders, right, are women as well as youth. 70% of our user base are women and youth, right? And by youth, you find that the majority of those are young women. It's given by the example of Mandy, who's actually up there. She's one of our Tumeza agents, right? She's part of our process. So one of the situations that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis is it's the little things that exclude people from the value chain of trading. So you find that you can build an app. And I think there's been this push towards digitalization where people think that you can appify everything. And unfortunately, that's not true, especially within the African context, or if I can speak on the behalf of the Southern African context. So what we ended up doing is when we were building our platform, and we learned this the hard way, as much as you built a tech platform, you also had to incorporate quite a bit of off-platform support already inbuilt into the system itself to ensure that your users were able to actually use the platform. So the challenges that we found, first of all, was that one, quite a number of the traders themselves did not either, one, have smartphones, or two, did not have access to internet either through unaffordable data packages or just electricity. And you can't fight an electricity where if the electricity off, a network is down, there's nothing you can do. You can't amplify your way out of that. So what we ended up doing is we'd get individuals such as Mandy, right, to say, hey, we're going to plant Tumeza agents within the communities/neighborhoods of Victoria Falls and Livingston. So where if, let's say, Google the trader wants to get a quotation of how much is this going to cost me, clearance included, to move this from Vic Falls to Livingston. Let me just take a walk to Mandy's shop, right? So Mandy then ends up acting as a form of mentor/offline support who says, let me log onto my system because Tumeza has paid for me to be online. So they managed to get the quotation for you, as well as to advise you if maybe there are any changes that may be looming that you as a trader may not know about. But as you can imagine, that takes quite a boatload of money that honestly we've been operating on a loss, for the year that we're running, the Tumeza Lite platform. And as a startup, we're not even, a large entity. We're a startup. We only deployed 2 million last year. And I think within the greater context, I know my sister here, you're saying we've wealthy billionaires, but the reality is the bulk of the businesses on the ground are not wealthy billionaires. It's the Googles who are like, I want to solve that problem, but then you realize the enormity of it. And from a cash flow perspective, it's a loss. So you're now looking at someone who's now like, am I running a social enterprise, or am I running a for-profit business? Which is where now the issue of inclusion now comes in. How many businesses would be willing to subsidize that cost? So I think that's where we are right now, and these are lessons that we've truly had to learn the hard way, right? There's a huge opportunity to digitize everything for cross-border traders, not just from movements of goods, but just insurance, savings, financing, which is something that we wanted to take over. But someone, and I think that's where maybe the issue of triple Ps come in, but maybe from a startup perspective, but someone needs to put in the patient capital to make sure that happens. And we're here to do that if someone wants to give us money.
Who's that someone?
Maybe let me not point fingers, but my sister over there.
Felix?
Thank you so much. From my end, I'd give it a different twist. Last year, as Real Sources Africa, in partnership with the AfCFTA Secretariat, we rolled out a program called Trade Connect Initiative, which was more or less an extension of what they called it Guided Trade Initiative. And maybe I forgot to mention something, and maybe I might not walk out of here alive if I don't mention it. So the AfCFTA Secretariat has realized that they have to get very practical with some of the activities. And to do so, they came up with a program called the AfCFTA Trading Companies. Real Sources Africa is the official trading company on behalf of Kenya to the Secretariat. And our main role as a company is aggregation for export. This is a testament of the energy and the commitment that the AfCFTA Secretariat has put up to be able to promote the facilitation of trade that they're actually pushing. But to do so, as I mentioned earlier, last year we came up with a program called Trade Connect Initiative. And what we're trying to do is that we're trying to ship 1,000 containers over a period of 12 months. To do so, we brought out a group of about 120 SMEs, 30 large-scale manufacturers, went on a market development spree, met off-takers in the export market, took the products they wanted, and then we worked backwards. One of the key lessons we took out of that was we realized that sometimes we don't produce based on what the market wants. Yeah. Sometimes we produce, we go to the market, and then we find what we are taking to the market is not what is required. Talking from a digitalization perspective, at Real Sources, we decided to come up with a few innovations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, some of the problems that we're trying to address today, there are innovations that are already existing and being piloted at the moment to solve the problems. Number one, we looked at the normal e-commerce. The e-commerce of listing products on a platform and waiting for people to come and buy. And we figured out that will not work. And we created what we call a deal room. A deal room to us is a platform where we list inquiries. We take quite specific inquiries from manufacturers and SMEs. An example of an inquiry is, I am a manufacturer of cocoa powder. This is my quality. This is the capacity I have. This is the markets I'm targeting. These are the certifications I do have, and I'm looking for a distributor in Tanzania. I'm looking for a distributor in Rwanda. Then what we do as Real Sources, we take those inquiries, we do KYCing on the customer who's making the inquiry, and we do KYCing on the actual inquiry. And then we blast these inquiries to actual distributors in the export countries that we're targeting to seek and see if either of them is willing to do what? To uptake these inquiries, and if they are willing to conform to the terms of payment that this client is actually giving. Secondly, to pull these inquiries, we build a portal called the Biashara Link portal. And the Biashara Link portal is being piloted at the moment by trade attaches in Kenya, because we realized that attaches collect so many inquiries, and these are some of the initial, let's say, warriors when it comes to economic diplomacy. But what happens right now, in most African countries, we take the inquiries via letters. They are transmitted somewhere to the ministry, and then somewhere, in a week or two, they don't materialize to anything, and nothing really happens. So through the same initiative, we've been able to digitize collection of these inquiries, transmission to the actual traders for immediate response. Now, we take 4 kinds of inquiries. We focus on commodity inquiries. Number 2, we focus on service inquiries. Number 3, we focus on investment inquiries. And finally, we focus on financing inquiries. The last platform that we've been able to work around is that we looked at the access of some of these rules of origin, the tariff book. The AfCFTA has gone ahead and digitized this, come up with an e-tariff book. COMESA has done the same thing. EAC has done the same thing. But at the same time, the traders we're engaging don't understand about a www.something. That one, they will not go to it. So what did we do at Resources? We went in and took a depository of all these particular tariff lines, and we created a simple AI WhatsApp-powered chatbot, whereby today, if you walk into that bot powered by Real Sources and type, what is the tariff rate for maize from Tanzania to Zambia, in less than a minute, it gives you that specific tariff rate. And the traders are able to access this information in real time, and that is the actual change you're looking for. As I mentioned earlier, market development is key. And all these innovations that we've been able to come up with is on the basis of the program we are running, still trying to do 1,000 containers, at the moment at around 317, but we still have to innovate to address the challenges that we are facing each and every day. To wrap up. We have to bring the young people to the equation. I thank the Secretariat for actually, the first time I worked at the Secretariat as a young person, and they wondered, will this person really understand what an AfCFTA company should be able to do?
Yeah.
But the faith that the people in this room should put into the young people is what we're trying to champion. The young people have the innovation, they have the skills. The seniors have the experience that we require. Let's walk this journey together, and let's make this continent a better place. All I can tell you guys is that we got this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. 2 quick questions. I really was still hoping that would be able to cross to our trader. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. I remain hopeful. But that's some of the key infrastructure that we require. Telecommunications that work all the time, not sometimes. or when they can, but they can't work when there's no power, right? Right. Okay. Felix, just wanted to ask, are things improving? You trade across the region, and then, yeah, answer that one, and then I'll follow up very quickly with the other one.
I can tell you things are improving as long as the players are willing to offtake our products. One thing I've realized, as long as there is demand for the product, I can tell you the traders will go to any length to make sure the transaction
You
works.
move quickly.
Any length, because at the end of the day,
Were you aware of the e-tariff book?
yes, I was aware of it.
Have you used it? Does it work?
Actually, I've used it well enough to start translating it to make it easy for my users to use it.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to address the issue of skills development, but I realize that we are running out of time, and I do want to give the audience a chance to participate as well, and perhaps make a comment or ask a question. So if you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to pose to our panelists, please raise your hand and be as a better question formulator than I am. There's a hand there. Wow, thank you. Do you want?
Yeah. The answer is yes. The e-tariff book is actually a public, you can go there, there is a user manual, you can actually take yourself through, you should be able to print whatever tariffs you've searched in a PDF form, where the rules of origin is also there. You can actually pull out a tariff at the same time with its rules of origin so that you will know whether it qualifies for the preferential treatment. We are working on then how you can print the entire e-tariff book, like if you want to print the tariff of Nigeria, for instance, if you can have the entire tariff pulled out. But right now what you can do is that you can print out your searches in a PDF format. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, points? Yes, there's a hand there and there's a hand here. Let's take you first. Sir? Oh, there were two of you there. Okay, let's begin with you. It looks like Chad, right? Yes, I know Chad. He's a trader as well.
Thank you very much.
Our microphone appears to be struggling a little bit. Let's hope, yeah, you are soft-spoken, so we do need the amplification of the system.
Thank you very much. My name is Chad. I've been an intra-Africa trader for about 23 years in Africa. And what I wanted to ask, there's something that I saw when it comes to logistics. I used to move a lot of coal from Zimbabwe to DRC. And when I managed to have efficiencies at the border, my turnaround time came down and I could reduce the cost of transport. But the other thing that I looked at is that in these countries between Zimbabwe, South Africa and DRC, cross-border fuel has got duties. Is there a way that cross-border fuel could be probably put at a free trade zone, a fuel station at a free trade zone? I think that could reduce the cost of transport by over 10-20%, especially with now the digitalization. There should be ways to track that this truck is crossing the border. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take the other question and then we can answer the two of them quickly. Yeah.
Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nangamso Ngumalo. I work for DHL Express Africa.
Try to speak into the microphone directly.
Is it better? Can you hear me?
Slightly, yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I am Nangamso Ngumalo. I work for DHL Express Africa. The question is relating to PPPs, right? As someone who works for a multinational that is very interested or invested in trying to garner relationships in Africa, particularly with the expansion or the implementation of the AfCFTA, we've designed various programs, and we recently rolled out, particularly internally, a training program relating to the AfCFTA at DHL. Now, I want to ask, because the AfCFTA is mostly an African-based sort of solution for African problems, as an international multinational that is not from Africa, that has already these facilities in place, that has a end-to-end process, we've got the expertise. Is there room for us to actually work with the Secretariat in developing further in terms of the implementation of the agreement?
Thank you. Thank you. Let's begin with that question at DHL.
Thank you very much. To the first question, what I would say is that unfortunately, the negotiations were done government to government, and it is whatever government says they've removed tariffs on is what you can then trade in without tariffs. Good news, however, is that of the 90% that we've liberalized, for developing countries, this is the 5th year, their tariffs should be pretty much be zero, because that's what is in the modality. And then for least developed countries, they have reduced halfway, because it's equal installments for 10 years for least developed countries. So where the tariffs were 50% before, they should be 25 now. So that is the good news. Towards 2033, when we hope to be at zero, and we hope we can be at zero before 2033. For the second question, the AfCFTA partners with a lot of multinationals. We are not in isolation. We don't operate in isolation. We have a lot of partners that are not African, and so we work with the WCO, for instance, to implement some of the things that we are doing, especially using their technical expertise for training. We work with UNCTAD, a couple of multinational organizations. So the answer to that is yes, there is room for that collaboration.
Thank you. The fuel question. Do you want to take it, Lillian? Who can take the fuel question?
Well, I mean, my understanding is goods under transit trade can be tracked. If the goods are moving across one country bound for another, actually there shouldn't be any payment. So that's my understanding, Demeter. So yeah, cargo tracking should really help that and reduce the risk rate of those goods not ending up where they're intended to be.
My understanding is asking, I mean, if you're moving goods across a border, you should be able to, because these are goods on transit, you should be able to take the fuel there, without tariffs. You take the fuel there at the costs that it is in the country. I do not know. There might be special arrangements, but this is not within the modalities of the AfCFTA. If you've crossed borders, you then do what happens on the side where you have crossed. But in terms of transit, well, transit goods, there's freedom of transit. So you can move transit goods. Nobody takes taxes on transit goods. If they take taxes, it's in a bonded form to be sure you don't offload the goods within their territory. And then when you get to where you're going and there is evidence that you are there, the bonds can be acquitted. So there is freedom of transit.
Exactly. So it should be duty-free, but subject to those bonds.
Yes.
And certainly if the transit agreement is between the different countries, the cargo tracking could just help to make sure that that's more efficient.
Maybe just to understand the question. So if, for instance, I have a truck running from South Africa, I reach Zimbabwe, my fuel runs out, and I pick fuel from Zimbabwe to go to Zambia, for instance. So is that the fuel that you're saying shouldn't pay taxes?
No, the carrying. It's transit traffic.
So it's a transit. All right, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I see 2 more hands, 4 more hands, 5 more hands. We're running out of time. How do we do this? I'll be fair because you guys have stuck it out and I respect your support. So let's go here quickly. Let's take 3 and then we take the last to this side. If you can be as quick as you can so that we can get their answers and get the others to participate.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sid Palmer from Quantum Hash Ventures. We run and operate data centers in 5 different countries across the continent. My comment was for the raising of capital. We are...
Try to speak into the microphone. We're losing you in parts.
Sorry. The comment is for raising capital to make this a reality, right? Earlier speaker said there's already billions of dollars spent in SWIFT fees. Why not we switch to other forms of payment cross-border so that we save on those SWIFT fees and pump that money into the infrastructure requirement that's needed? For example, when we have to pay people in Nigeria, we're not using the traditional banks anymore. We're using stable coins and cryptocurrency to make this happen. So that is my comment. I would love, and I'd love to implore the Secretariat comes up with a strategy that aligns in these objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's get the hand here. Is that a hand right at the back? Yes, there were 3 here. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for the questions, by the way. Speak into the microphone, ma'am, so we can hear you. To answer, okay. I don't know, the microphone does not seem...
Just to share that at Trademark, we have actually initiated for the first time anywhere in the world, use of AI scanning imagery between Uganda and Kenya, and we are soon scaling it up to Rwanda, Tanzania, and of course across Africa. And it's addressing the issue you have, because what happened when you're importing safe fuel and you come in with 1,000 liters from Kenya, by the time it gets to Uganda, you know what it happens along the way. They will siphon off fuel. But through AI image scanning that has recently been deployed, you're able to actually see the amount of fuel. Because you know what happens is that Uganda and Kenya will both tighten up to ensure that fuel is not being siphoned off. And so then they put border tracking and so many other things. With AI imaging, you share the images between Uganda and Kenya, and they will automatically know that truck UAX 549 has 1,000 liters, and it will be measured at each stoppage, and they will ensure that they keep the same. So it's doing wonders. We hope to scale this up, but it's one of the best examples of AI and new technologies and what they can do to change trade for Africa.
Thank you, thank you. I hope AI can see and make a distinction between water and...
Yes, that's because of the trends. You remember there are 2,000 trucks crossing.
Yeah.
And with person, if you're looking at it 6 minutes, you're going to look at the image, is this water, is it?
Yeah.
With AI,
Yeah.
you're able to look at the density, all that is factored in. In 30 seconds, you can take a decision to release the truck.
Thank you, thank you. There was a scandal in Zimbabwe around that. I think there was a hand right at the back behind you, Sam. Sam, behind you? Yeah. Very quickly if you can, and then we'll take the last 2. Creativity, technology coming to the fore. Yes, sir.
Good evening to all. My name is Roy Tembe. I'm from Mozambique. I flew all the way to Mozambique to attend this event because it's hard to hear about the AfCFTA in Mozambique. I usually hear about it on the internet, and because I'm really interested in this topic, I'm developer platform and etc. I won't go there. My question is about the human aspect that the lady spoke. What are we actually doing to grow? I mean, like to change the mindset, not only the leaders, the people itself. When you tell someone in Mozambique, oh, I went to Tanzania, I went to Rwanda, what were you doing there? Why Rwanda? Why Mozambique? Why Zambia? Because people are really still not believing that there's a lot of business inside Africa. So my question is this a challenge that the AfCFTA, sorry, it's hard to say it once, but is there anything in place to change the mentality of Africans? Thank you.
Thank you. I can tell you I'm also trying. I speak a lot about it, but certainly that's work for the Secretariat. There was a couple of hands here, if we can quickly. I think the one point that remains to answer is around Bitcoin, right? Yeah, okay, let's quickly. But I don't know if it requires an answer actually. Oh no, you wanted to respond to it. The first question from the gentleman in the corner here.
Yeah, I really like the point you made about rethinking payments. And, you know, one thing we'll be doing after this is this twin launch. And the whole idea, if you can see documents and make sure that they are totally trusted, say your person has an order from a big company, you can discount that and create finance. You can do cross-border payments. You can do stable coins. And I think that the power of this is very strong. And I like that idea of putting some of that SWIFT capital into the infrastructure. There is something good there. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Thank you. Okay, go ma'am.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Nomsa Ngoma. I'm an innovation consultant based in Lusaka.
Try to hold the microphone closer to your mouth.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Okay. So my name is Nomsa Ngoma. I'm an innovation consultant based in Lusaka, and I have a question for the permanent secretary. When it comes to informal traders and inclusion, because I think we've spoken a lot about inclusion and how I think 70% of informal traders, make up the bulk of trade at our borders, and we know that Kasumbalesa is one of the largest, if not the largest, informal market, border market on the continent. I just wanted to know, when you are creating policies and when we're thinking about the AfCFTA, how are we sensitizing the informal traders that are at the borders and working there? How are we sensitizing them about the AfCFTA? And also, while we're thinking about digitizing everything, how are we just making sure that they're included and making sure that the bulk of our economy, because they are informal, a lot of people are informal traders. So how are we making sure that they're included in our move towards digitization?
Yeah, thank you. One last hand. Oh, there's another one. We really have to close it.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So my question is also towards the permanent secretary. And I want to find out whether, as in the case of the GTI, if our non-tariff measures for Zambia have been notified to the AfCFTA Secretariat, and are these in the public domain so that traders are able to be informed in advance? And then, so have these notifications been made to the AfCFTA? The non-tariff measures such as subjecting our products to the testing that maybe Zambia Bureau of Standards is doing and Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency, are these non-tariff measures being notified to the AfCFTA? And how are our mutual recognition working? Our mutual recognitions, are we just using the bilateral relations where maybe a certificate of analysis from Zimbabwe is able to be recognized in Zambia so that the goods are not subjected to product testing? Yeah, those are my questions.
You took advantage. She sure did. Okay, there's one more hand. It's the last one, right? I see.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Ngongo. I'm coming from Zambia. I represent a company called Global Commodities Advisory. Mine is obviously a concern, and just to amplify what Felix shared around ensuring that we bring young people on the table when we're discussing these issues, especially implementation of this agenda on the tech side. So one of the biggest challenges which we have in Africa, I come from the commodities space. We specifically trade commodities in Zambia. Our interest is more on grains and legumes, soybeans and maize, wheat as well. So one of the biggest challenges which we have in Zambia is, in Africa in general, is we do not have viable commodities exchanges platform. If you look at Africa, the only country which is able to trade futures, for example, is South Africa. Zambia, yes, we do have one, but we are still limping here and there. Zimbabwe is the same story. So now, what has been hitting me, because I've been in this space for quite some time, is they're not viable. Is it that maybe the people who are running it now are failing, and maybe now it's an opportunity to bring young people on the table? to suggest initiatives that can obviously push the agenda of trade. Maybe Madam can respond to that.
But do you want to set up one?
I was saying, in the past, it's been a challenge for Africa to develop fully functional commodities exchanges. Then the thinking is maybe the previous initiatives.
No. The answer is no. You need help to set up one.
We need, is it the time for young people to come in so that maybe they suggest other initiatives that can push?
Okay.
Maybe how can the ministry or maybe the PS provide a platform for young people to come in and suggest their initiatives?
Okay, got you. There's one last thing that's right in the corner, but while the microphone is traveling there, let's answer the other questions. Lillian, can I start with you?
Thank you very much. Just to speak to the question that has been raised, you mentioned non-tariff barriers, non-tariff measures. So these are two different concepts. So your question to say, have we notified our NTBs and AfCFTA? As you know, AfCFTA implementation is based on your domestication of your tariff measures. So as Zambia, we just issued our statutory instrument on our Category A commitments. So that has been notified, and so far we are yet to see products coming into Zambia on the basis of Category A. So Category A. So when you say there are non-tariff barriers in the context of AfCFTA, it's very early in the process to say they are. When it comes to non-tariff measures, like those that are applied under the Bureau of Standards, whether they are phytosanitary, these are legitimate measures because you want to ensure the safety for human consumption, it's safe for the environment, it's safe or health for the animals. So having these in place doesn't mean that you are inhibiting trade, but how you apply them is what causes the NTBs. So when you say, have you notified your non-tariff measures, we have a system of making information available on the net for products that require certification, whether it's by the Bureau of Standards. You know that if you are doing medicine-related, agriculture-related products, you need certification from relevant institutions. So that information is available on the net. But if you are not able to access, the Ministry of Commerce has got a trade portal. We have our national trade portal, so
please, you can mention it.
Information around that.
Yeah.
So in terms of mutual recognition, so mutually recognizing your systems is based on what another country is doing. If I require certain products to go under a process and my neighboring country wants those products, we have to sit and understand each other and get into an MOU that these processes are considered as similar and we can trade on the basis of those. So we are doing MRS on the basis of those bilateral discussions. In terms of the commodity exchange, nothing stops the smaller or SMEs to come up with platforms for trading. I've seen quite a number of platforms that are around that are facilitating exchange of commodities.
I have a couple of friends who have tried as well. It hasn't quite worked out. It's not easy. Okay. And then I think the other question was around education. And I think we all agree there's a lack of information. There's a lot of work to be done to educate people. Come in, Frank.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer or try to answer the question you asked about small traders. I guess I've had the privilege of working with many. I think over the years, probably we reached around 200,000 women traders, certainly mainly in East Africa. Helped them form associations, which is really important because they were really being treated badly at the borders. They'd be forced to make payments and smuggle. But when we developed the borders that we did, we actually made a real effort to bring them into the design of the border, had green lanes for them, because under the de minimis, they shouldn't be stopped, in East Africa anyway, and actually gave them seats on the border committees with the key agencies. That really changed the whole thing. And I remember going to the WTO, taking a group of women there whose lives had just been transformed by some of this. And in fact, we even did a study to show how much tax those women paid. As soon as Uganda and Kenya understood that at the Busia border, things changed. You know, the customs officers started not abusing them, being very, you know, so actually, I think it's really important, the point you raised, because a lot of our trade happens with small traders. We have to think hard about how we can empower them digitally. And oddly enough, things as simple as WhatsApp are very powerful for women traders, right? And I mean, one project that we were doing about cross-border payments using M-Pesa in East Africa is also very, so I think the point you make is really good. We've got to make sure that those traders that form the backbone of our economies aren't marginalized by some of the systems put in place. They've got to be really accessible.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Last question.
Thank you so much. My name is Natasha Mwansa, and I work in various spaces. I am an advocate, and recently I started advocating for trade as well because I realized its impact on healthcare. And I love the point that was made on having young people on board. So my first question is, what platforms are there for more young people to actually be on board with this, right? I did hear the question he had asked, but what platforms are there for young people to get on board and actually help make trade fair? Then my second question is on data protection. It's a final one, right? So we have currently in Zambia, we have this whole cybersecurity going on. And I wanted to know how the Africa Free Trade Continental area is going to ensure that there's free flow of data amongst member states, but also protection of that data. And then finally, I was recently working at border points. It's the final one. I was recently working at border points and having to work with agents on the ground. We got to hear them complain about things like the corruption is quite high there, right? They're having to pay 10 times more sometimes than what they're required to pay just for a process to go up. So would there be some form of dashboard that the African Union can create where they're able to actually follow through and be transparent with what's going on at the borders, where these agents can actually complain and just file in whatever is going on and say, this is what's on the ground and it needs to be looked into, because we may be in this room, but they're still in the borders and they're still having to pay those fines that they're not required to. So how are we going to make sure that there's accountability and transparency on the ground using digital platforms as well that can actually be tracked by Africa in general, not just, you know, the Zambian government alone, but something we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Valid points.
I can answer the first
one.
I think I've got an answer for that one. Thank you for your passionate intervention. I think it's the energy we needed to kind of jolt us awake again. So, hi, my sister here. So yes, there are 2 active platforms on the continent, right? The first one is the African Youth Business Council, and I'm currently acting as the Youth Engagement Officer. So we're currently extremely active on the continent advocating for policy changes, especially around trade, but most importantly, also coming up with practical solutions for the people that we represent. So you can look us up, www.afypc.com. Second, we've got our sister organization, Ikoyaka. Sorry, Anele, the acronym is going to kill me. It's the Independent Continental African Free, Yeah, well, it's a mouthful, but you can look them up. They're doing quite a great job for advocating for inclusion of youth within AfCFTA in particular policies. So look up those and we'll be more than happy to have you on board. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Last word.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first I will say to the gentleman from Mozambique that sensitization and awareness creation is a continuous thing, which the AfCFTA embarks on, and we try to use so many different platforms, including this one, and including the Biashara Africa, and including the intra-Africa trade, to then ensure that AfCFTA becomes a grassroots name. Then secondly, on what we are doing about ensuring that the youths are represented, the AfCFTA, you might know, do have a protocol on women and youth in trade. The focus of that protocol is then to see how women and youth can be included in a realistic way in trade. And so there are so many programs that are targeted to the operationalization of that protocol. The other issues you raised is then why we are here, to digitalize the borders, the corruption she raised. I'll tell you a small story. It won't be a long one because I know we are tired. My daughter was traveling, and she was supposed to, she booked a flight that she doesn't have luggage allowance as a student, right? So she's just meant to have her backpack 7 kg. She appears before the person who should check her in. Maybe because she made a puppy dog face, I don't know. But you know, the lady looked at her and said, okay, I'll check you in, don't worry, I know you're a student. She arrives at the next point, and then it was a machine. And so the machine just simply said, place your baggage on the scale. And she placed her baggage on the scale. The machine says, this is the weight. Press here, that will cost you 40 euros. And press here for your receipt. So this is what digitalization can do. You see, there was no circumvention of rules there. There was no human interface for the rules to be circumvented. So that's the point. So that's why we are saying you digitalize our borders. You then limit the issue of circumvention of rules at the borders. That is one of the key things that it will then achieve. Like my people will say in Nigerian parlance, they know they beg robot too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please. Oh, we are really rightly out of time.
I'd like to add something on the youth.
I don't even have the microphone now. Hey?
Allow me just to add one last thing touching the youth agenda. To the gentleman and the lady who were asking of the opportunities that are available for the young people. One thing I always tell most of the young people is that we need to innovate. But as we innovate, we still have to have the resilience to be able to carry our innovations to the next level. I've seen so many young people, we innovate, but unfortunately we don't have the energy to be able to present or to be able to fight for our innovations. Unfortunately, what I've come to learn, the youth card, we might not really use it to, avoid or kind of get an upper hand in the society in terms of saying that, I'm a young person, maybe we can avoid some of these rules or learning curves. Unfortunately, we will have to learn. We will have to learn the hard way sometimes, but we need to have the resilience to be able to take some of these lessons. The innovations that are going to stand out at the end of the day are innovations that will have to go through the test of time, and we have to be resilient enough to be able to go through it. I challenge you, start off that commodity exchange platform. Take my number. I will guide you on how to set it up. I know how to set it up. And it's things that we can work together towards. And when more young people come on board and support each other, we are the future of the continent. And that future is today, is not tomorrow. We are the stakeholders of tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. I have been told I can take one more. Yes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to answer to the lady who asked about the platform under the AfCFTA. We have the AfCFTA Youth Symposium that happens annually. It is a platform where all youth can come and participate and discuss issues that are challenging to them and come up with ideas on how to resolve most of those issues. The AfCFTA Youth Symposium. We also have a conference on women in trade, which also allows the young ladies to participate. So it's not only the Youth Symposium, even the conference on women in trade, youth can or the girls or the ladies can also participate. There was a question earlier about the NTBs, non-tariff barriers, non-tariff measures. Under the AfCFTA, we have the NTB platform, where all the NTBs are reported and they can check on in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for insisting and answering the questions. Totally appreciate you. And please help me to thank our panelists for some very engaging conversations. And I'm hoping that all the solutions that were offered here are going to be done, including the dreams that were given by all our participation. Let me just perhaps briefly remind you, we're talking about key infrastructure that's required. We must ensure that that infrastructure is built. Who needs to build it? I don't know, but we had some very creative solutions around how we build that infrastructure. It's a combination of government, it's a combination of involving the private sector. Systems, harmonization is absolutely key. Can't do what South Africa and Zimbabwe have done. Build one side of the border and not build the other side of the border, and now you've got an imbalance. Technology is going to help us, and hopefully it will help us root out corruption as well in the process. Education, it's all our work, it's my life work until I go to my grave. Thank you very much for your participation again, and thank to all of you for listening in. But don't go anywhere. One more request. We have an exciting 10-minute presentation to bring to action some of the things that we've been talking about here. And as you can see, she's making her way back here to energize and excite you again.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much to the panelists. They've kept us awake. I got to my hotel as a result of air travel last night at I think 2 a.m. and I was slept at 3:30 a.m. I can't believe I'm still awake. Thankful for all the sweets and the coca at lunch. So, there's a photo of us. Yes. So, we are here so excited.
I'm coming back.
So you've heard about the pain points the traders face. You've heard passionately from Google and from others, the young traders, the older traders. You've also heard from real solutions, real sources from what the UK is doing and the AfCFTA, and from what many others are doing to make trade better. So, well, we here at Trademark, together with various partners who have asked to come on the stage, hearing this price. I've been hearing this price, and for the last year, we have been working together, driven by a shared belief that digital infrastructure, like the trade network that we are about to launch, can make trade more open, more trusted, more predictable, we've heard about predictability, and easier to navigate across the continent. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves. We have Trademark Africa. Plus a couple of others that are not here.
I think it's worth saying of how the birth of this came about. And I mean, Alain and I got together at Trademark when I was this year, way back in this time. And we did a number of pilots.
Trying to create really what we're talking about, a seamless digital pipeline for trade. Something that could link all of the different government systems, all of the different agencies, even the cargo tracking ability in one seamless pipe, digital pipe, that could also make sure that all the documentation was totally original and could not be faked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're a trader and you've sent your flowers to Rotterdam and it takes around 3 weeks maybe for the flowers to get there, or if they're on the plane, they will take overnight, but your documentation is not trusted. They have to go back to Kenya Bureau of Standards or go back to the Kenya Revenue Authority to ensure that the manifests are actually true. That takes time. The flowers, will they wait? They won't wait, they will wilt. The same with Africa. Imagine you're in Nigeria and you're trying to trade with a trader in Algeria, in South Africa. Would you trust their documents if you haven't seen them? You may not be able to trust, and that's what's hindering trade. So together, all these organizations, hearing the pain points, seeing the real challenges faced by traders, decided to come together working with the governments, including government of Kenya, and now piloting around, trying to see how we can expand the pilot to other countries in the region, to see how we can put in place trusted infrastructure that allows for seamless trade. And trade documents are the foundation of trade. So that's what we're about to launch today.
Yeah, and from its origins that were tested, developed here in Africa for Africa, we've developed a foundation that will be the custodian. Open access, free technology for the continent. And maybe I'll just pass it to Jens of IOTA to say a little bit about the technology.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very, very pleased to be here. And sorry for all the strong team that couldn't join me here today. Very strong team in Kenya who's been part of forging this. So I work for the IOTA Foundation. It's a research and development foundation that works on distributed ledger technologies, or what we normally call blockchain. And we were challenged to be part of this on how we built something that actually works for trade. It's been forged in fire in Kenya. That's where it started. It's been forged with traders, truckers, agents, governments, single window systems. Mombasa Port, it's moved in. We've been in Rotterdam. We've been in Felixstowe. The British government heard about this and are testing it for their borders now, so we're very proud of how this is developing. And basically, we're getting to a place where the technology has the features it needs for cross-border trade. But what has been really interesting for the journey for our side is also, how do you build this open-sourced and very cheap and allowed actually to be a public infrastructure? So very proud to be here today after years of hard work, so thank you. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Jens. And, you know, I think the technology is very exciting. Now I'm just going to hand it, Zach, who's in charge of the technology. I'm honored to share a short message from someone who's quite important to my day job, but also to somebody who really has been impressed with the technology and sees the potential for it. So Zach, could you play the video now, please? Would that be all right?
Trade has always been a powerful engine for economic prosperity. And today, nowhere is that potential for growth more urgent or more promising than in Africa. Right now, just 15% of African trade happens within the continent. The African Continental Free Trade Area can change that to unlock new markets, new industries, and therefore new jobs for millions of people across Africa. But to seize that opportunity, there needs to be a different approach which pulls down the barriers, cuts through the red tape, and brings trade fully into the digital age, harnessing the power of the technology revolution. That's why I'm proud that my institute is part of the governance framework of the new Twin Foundation that is being launched in Lusaka today. Twin, the Trade Worldwide Information Network, is a digital infrastructure for global trade built on emerging technologies. It has been tested, it works, and it can make trade faster, cheaper, more transparent, and more inclusive than ever before. So Twin is not just a piece of technology, it's a transformation, a foundation that will allow countries to modernize their trade systems, connect across borders, and realize the true promise of global trade. It's about building a digital public infrastructure that every government, every business, large or small, can access and can trust. Its strength is that it's easy to connect into existing systems, and so the investment for it is low. It's about ensuring global trade growth is powered not by bureaucracy and paper the old-fashioned way, but by innovation and opportunity. Most importantly, Twin is built through partnership. Institutions, international organizations, forward-looking governments, all working together to deliver real and lasting change. The future of global trade, especially today, runs on digital rails. The future of any country's prosperity demands it. And today, in Africa, with the launch of the Twin Foundation, that future is no longer just a vision. It is a tangible reality ready to be acted upon. Thank you very much.
System can add trillions of dollars each year to the global economy. And we're very proud to present and launch the Twin Foundation today in Lusaka, Zambia. Thank you so much.
Could we play?
To Zambia, where we are today. May this foundation and may this infrastructure help us to trade. We are excited. We are already seeing it happening, connecting customs from Cote d'Ivoire to Ghana, Ghana to Kenya. It's happening in real time. So here is to Twin and here is to trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another round, the last one for them,
Just
please.
to say you can scan and get to know more information around Twin and the infrastructure, and it's open source.
Thank you, and a big congratulations to the Twin Foundation, and of course with the AfCFTA digital protocol now in place, the time couldn't be more right for this kind of initiative. It's the kind of infrastructure that can turn policies into progress, enabling secure, connected, and inclusive trade across the continent. Thank you to the Twin Foundation and to the bakers, and if you'd like to learn more about this, please meet the team and explore what Team Twin can offer, and you are of course invited to visit their booth. Thank you all, and I believe that's the last word. Thank you again to all of you for your patience, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey, for moderating that session very well. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the day one of the inaugural Digital and Trade Services Forum. Just to inform everybody that we've been invited for a cocktail reception that is being hosted by the AfCFTA Secretariat. The struggles continues, ladies and gentlemen. So the cocktail is taking place outside, just in the banquet hall. So we'll do well to transition quickly in there and let the fun begin. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Not in here. Okay, I've been corrected that tomorrow's session will start at exactly 8. So you do well to be here at 8. We shall begin our day tomorrow with the first plenary session that is going to focus on enabling seamless and affordable cross-border digital payments in the African region. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being present today, and we can proceed to the cocktail reception. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Jungle.